Bear with me, everybody. If you can hear me, I'm having technical difficulties. I'm suddenly not hearing any audio. Okay, so I got video. Okay, give me a second. Can you guys hear me at all? Is there any? I don't know if you guys can hear me. Okay, so you guys can hear me. You guys can see me. I just can't hear you guys. Give me a moment to figure this out. All of a sudden, everything was working fine till just a moment ago. Give me a moment.
What?
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 All right, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Ah, golly, this is ridiculous. Let's try this again. Audio, audio. So you can hear me now. So you can hear me now. God, this is ridiculous. I wish I could hear myself. For some reason, my headphones quit working. I don't know what happened. All right, so audio's coming through. Okay, so I don't know what's going on with the audio. We'll see if I can get that to work. So you guys said I got to start from the top. The first comment was, let's go, but not to prison. That was from Novarain. That one wouldn't come up in the StreamYard, but it says Real Talk MimzyLimz came through. Hey, y'all. Novarain put the buffering in there. I'm not reading the disclaimers again, but everybody please go back and read the disclaimers. Couple faces from Nova. Time to take over the world, starting with this channel. Thanks, though. Went through my audio problems because this is not critically drinking if you do not have audio problems. Oh, my God. Police chat in the building. Thank you for popping through AR. We got, him versus her solutions. I forgot. Now you can hear me. My God, man. My audio's black. It don't work, man. You're right. Yeah. Yo, you can laugh, man. You can laugh because, boy, that is ridiculous. Okay, so hold on. Before I even get started, I'm going to see if all the other audios work. Let me see if... Give me a second. Jeez. Un momento. Let's try something out.
What?
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 Bro, what are you talking?
Nope. That's coming through on your side, but I'm not getting any audio. Give me another moment, guys. Sorry.
Save one.
All right, so it looks like my audio is just not working in StreamYard. It's working for every other app, and I don't know how to fix that. So I'm going to just have to hope that you guys can hear me throughout this. Yeah, this is ridiculous. So I don't know what you guys are going to be able to hear. I'm going to try something else in just a second, just to see. Tell me if you guys hear music coming through. If you can hear music in the background. Any music? Any music? Any music? Okay, so you can hear the music. Huh. That's peculiar. All right, so I really don't have... I really don't know how to fix this. So, yeah, that's weird. So, I don't know what to do because I stuck videos inside the StreamYard. So, was there any music on the intro? So, listen, if I play this intro, tell me if there's music or sound for you guys because I don't hear anything. Okay, because I pulled up a YouTube on my phone and I'm hearing them. Dang, that's weird. Okay, so you guys can hear everything. I'm just not getting any audio. I don't know what to make of it, people. But I guess I'll have to press on anyway. So as long as you guys can hear everything, it might make me miss a cue on at some part. I may miss something because I can't hear what you guys are hearing. So I may not know when things are beginning or ending. Oh, goodness. But little background music. Hopefully it's not too loud. Tell me if it's too loud. Can you hear me over the music? Or do I need to turn it down some? Can I be heard over the music? Can I be heard over the music? Can you hear me? Or is it distracting? Do I need to lower it? Novarain said yes. Is it fine or is it too high, too low? I can be heard. Turn it down a little. All right, cool. All right, folks. Man. Right about there. All right. Don't know what I'm gonna do. But anyway. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sorry for the technical difficulties, man. I have no idea what's happening, but welcome you all to Critically Drinking. I am Rashawn. A quick programming note, next week on Monday the 18th, we will be discussing disaster preparation. Let me pull that up just so you can see the calendar really quickly. You can see it for yourselves. If I can navigate a little faster. Boom. All right. So on the 18th, we will be discussing disaster preparation with an interesting twist. My intention is to do it in a specific way, but we'll see if it comes together the way I intend to. Let me see. Boom. Come here. Best laid plans of mice and men, y'all. Best laid plans. Summer Mince Pies, Twitch gang in the building. Appreciate you for popping through. Having technical difficulties. I can't hear all of the audio from StreamYards. When I play clips and stuff, I won't be able to hear what you guys hear. Hopefully that won't cause too much of a problem. Bear with me. I need to get something else set up as well. All right, cool. Follow up from the last episode from last week was choosing sides. Everyone that gave, I honestly thank and appreciate you. It did confirm my belief or maybe my confirmation bias. But to the few that gave, check your accounts. I know JP already got hers, but I returned what you gave with a little bonus. So at least one person saw it already. You know, JP let me know she got it. To the other people that gave, let me know that you got what I sent you back. Again, it wasn't to take anybody's money. I just wanted to see where I stood, and I got the answer I needed. And I appreciate you all for helping provide the necessary clarity. I am going to play a few small videos that I stitched together to explain what the school to prison pipeline is. After that, I'll go into more detail and then open up the panel after I finish section 1. There are 3 sections. So after we finish the discussion on section 1, I'll then ask the panel to mute, or I'll have to just put you backstage, and then I'll go into section 2 and again bring you back for the discussion. And we'll do that for section 1, section 2, and section 3. So this quite possibly could be 3 hours, all in all, because I do have a lot of information in here, but I do want to get started. I don't know how exactly this is going to go. So again, I will start with my thesis. Before I play this video, I will start with the thesis. That'll already rub AR the wrong way, or I don't know how that's gonna go, because AR, he's super about these youths. But then I'll add context as we walk through how we come to terms with this dynamic. But my thesis statement is the school to prison dynamic is a completely natural and expectable result of American society. I already know that sounds crazy, but through the information I'm going to provide and the data, statistics, everything I'm going to pull up for you guys, I do plan to walk you to that outcome. But we are going to see if I can get this video to play. I'm going to pause the music for a moment. See if I can get it to pull up. See if you guys can hear it. That's the thing. That's the trick. Give me a moment. I couldn't get it loaded in the StreamYard, and I guess that's a good thing, seeing as I can't hear anything that goes on in StreamYard. All right, go ahead and pull the video up. Is there a way to take me out?
Yeah, you're right. Barely. Stop! Stop! Stop!
Hands behind your back. Give me your hands. Give me your hands.
Ain't nobody listen. Huh? You know what these are for? These are for people that don't want to listen and don't know how to act. You can most definitely. Matter of fact, we applaud the fact that you would please beat your kid. You know why?
I don't like bad children. Bad, disrespectful children. I think they need to be beaten.
No, I want it outside. No, don't put it outside. I don't want to go to the police car.
You don't want to?
No, please.
You have to.
In 2018, a 14-year-old boy in Fresno, California came to school with this pattern cut into his hair. He was told that he was distracting to other students and violating the dress code, so his mother agreed to get him another haircut, but said that she couldn't get an immediate appointment because of a lack of black barbers in the neighborhood. So when he returned to school the next day, he was suspended. In the same year, a student in Apache Junction, Arizona came to school with a bandana tied around his head and was also told that he was violating the dress code. As teenagers sometimes are, he was a bit obstinate and refused to take the bandana off, and that got him arrested. In 2012, in Midgeville, Georgia, a 6-year-old threw a tantrum and was arrested for simple battery and criminal damage to property. It didn't say what degree that was in, but in Georgia, the lower second degree carries a minimum 1-year sentence. Charges were only dropped after public outcry. You'll probably notice that all 3 of these kids are black. These kinds of strict punishments fall disproportionately on kids of color and especially black kids in American schools. A study by the U.S. Department of Education looked at the 2009-2010 school year and found that black kids were 3.5 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than their white peers. And black and Latinx kids account for 70% of arrests made in school, despite making up only 29% of the population. Accordingly, people of color, and especially black people, are overrepresented in the prison population. Only 13% of Americans are black, but 40% of incarcerated people are black. And with more than 2 million prisoners, America has more prisoners than any other country in the world, both in absolute numbers and as a percentage of the population. The link between these two things is called the school-to-prison pipeline. It's the idea that by enforcing stricter and stricter disciplinary measures, schools are funneling kids towards the criminal justice system, criminalizing them before they even have a chance to get into the world, and that this effect is disproportionately affecting kids of color. Today, we're going to look at what this is, what's responsible for it, and what people are doing to change it.
So I'm here to help answer 2 questions. 1, what is the school-to-prison pipeline? And 2, how do we dismantle it? My name is Michael Waller. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Appleseed Center for Law and Justice. We're a nonprofit law center fighting to advance justice for all of Georgia's children, particularly to expand education rights to keep kids in school and out of the criminal justice system, and to expand access to healthy housing for low-income families. We do that through community engagement and finding solutions to the institutional, structural, systemic injustices that are deeply embedded in our society, like racism and poverty. There are 3 main elements to the school-to-prison pipeline. The first is the school's use of harsh exclusionary discipline, so putting kids out of school, sending them out of the school community through long-term suspensions or expulsions. The second is policing in schools, adding armed police officers in the school building. And the third is through police or through school action and school administrators making referrals to juvenile court for misbehavior. So many of us can remember a time when student misbehavior was a school discipline issue and wasn't a juvenile justice system issue. And the problem that we face is that once we put these children into the juvenile justice system, once we introduce them to it through school misbehavior, they are more likely to remain in the juvenile justice system and have further involvement. Justice system involvement begets additional justice system involvement. So for many of these kids, an introduction to the juvenile justice system for often a minor infraction at school might mean additional justice system involvement in the future, which also means a risk for lower educational outcomes. So many of these children now are looking at a reduced possibility to thrive as adults. But there's a larger picture too, because it doesn't just impact the particular students who are referred to juvenile court. It impacts every student in that school, because we have to remember that behavior is communication. And when children behave in a certain way, they're trying to communicate something to us. So when a child comes to school hungry, without having had a good night's sleep, processing or dealing with something that's happened to them at home, and they bring that to the school, they will often try to communicate that to school staff as behavior. And when we choose our response, when we behave in response, we're communicating something back, not just to that child, but to the entire school and all of their classmates. And what we are choosing to tell them and to teach them is that they are worth less than their white and wealthier peers. And those other students, they're learning that same exact lesson. And that will reverberate throughout their lives for them, but also throughout society, and perpetuates those systemic injustices that we all struggle with on a daily basis, particularly our Black students, our students, other students of color, students experiencing poverty and with disabilities, and those students in foster care. So what can be done? Well, fortunately, this is a human-made problem, and so we can solve it. And we know there are things that work. So I'll take you through four steps. Now, the first thing is less policing in schools. We know that the more police that are in the school, the more armed police in school, the more referrals to juvenile court. Second, schools and juvenile courts and other stakeholders can work together in school justice partnerships. And when those come together, when those entities come together in those partnerships, they come up with working strategies to reduce the number of children referred from school to the juvenile court. Next, schools and communities can come together to provide children with behavior and learning challenges the supports that they need. School-based behavioral health, restorative practices, school climate reform. Those make a difference for kids. They reduce overall discipline problems for the entire population, and you can provide those services directly to meet the needs of particular students to help them through those behavior challenges. All right, so now what can you do? Well, first, start talking and start learning and get involved. Get involved with your schools, with your PTA, with your school boards. Ask hard questions, make suggestions, offer them resources. And you can support organizations like Georgia Appleseed, but also your local community organizations. So for example, if you're in Gwinnett Stop. If you're in Savannah, the Deep Center. Also other statewide organizations like Interfaith Children's Movement, or Voices for Georgia's Children, or the Barton Center at Emory. So we can do this. We created this problem, and we can solve it if we all work together. I want to thank all of you for listening today, and if you have any questions about this or you want to get involved, you can go to our website at gaappleseed.org. You can reach out to me personally at mwaller@gaappleseed.
Really quickly, just want to interrupt this. There are about 4 minutes left. There's going to be some duplicate information in the subsequent videos, but they do talk about a couple of other points. Excuse me. Excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and let them finish out. But I did want to let you know there's about 4 more minutes, maybe 5 of video. Then we'll go into the conversation. Wow.
.org. Thank you.
Sometimes the school to prison pipeline. It's shorthand for how schools are funneling students, especially Black students, into the criminal justice system. It started in the 90s when schools responded to fears about crime with zero tolerance policies, which mandated suspensions and expulsions for certain violations. They also cracked down on little things like talking back or uniform violations. The hope was that it would keep bigger problems from bubbling up. But as a result, out-of-school suspensions have doubled since the 1970s, and they keep increasing even though juvenile crime rates have now been dropping for years. Around the same time, the number of police officers stationed full-time inside schools has increased by a third between 1997 and 2007. Ostensibly, they were there to prevent mass school shootings like the one at Columbine, but they end up being a way for schools to basically outsource discipline to the police. Schools with officers have 5 times as many arrests for disorderly conduct as schools without them. Sometimes the results are shocking. But the less visible effect is that schools are feeding the racial disparities in the criminal justice system. Consider the fact that schools are more likely to have an officer on their campus if the student population is more than 50% Black. You might assume that that's because there's more crime at these schools, but although students at police schools are more likely to be arrested, they're not actually more likely to be charged in court for weapons, drugs, alcohol, or assault, at least according to one study. During the 2010-2011 school year, 1 in 6 public school students in the US were Black, but they accounted for 1 in 3 arrests at school. Same goes for other forms of school discipline. Black students are suspended or expelled 3 times more frequently than white students. It actually begins in preschool. 18% of preschoolers are Black. But if all preschoolers suspended more than once, 48% are Black. Studies show that differences in behavior can't fully account for these disparities. Black students and white students are sent to the principal's office at similar rates, but Black students are more likely to end up with a serious punishment. One study found that white students are more likely to be suspended for provable offenses like smoking or vandalism. Black students are more likely to be suspended for subjective offenses like talking back or insubordination. Students who are suspended in school are more likely to later drop out or get arrested. So the federal government is asking schools to make suspension and expulsion the absolute last resort. In Oakland, California, public schools are trying something called restorative justice, where both parties in a conflict talk it out with a counselor instead of relying on punishment. The results are pretty encouraging. In the last 10 years, chronic absenteeism is down and graduation rates are up in the schools that have tried it. Other cities and districts are also trying new policies. They're hoping that if their students end up in the criminal justice system, at least it won't be because the schools pushed them there.
What would you do if your child was placed in handcuffs for crying at school? Well, this was a reality for a 7-year-old Black boy in Missouri, and it isn't rare for Black and brown kids across the country. Whether it's getting arrested for talking back or doodling on a desk, in-school policing is harming students by taking them out of school and helping funnel them into prisons. It's called the school-to-prison pipeline. We're talking about a structure of codes and punishments that criminalizes kids as early as preschool and increases their chances of ending up in the criminal justice system. 99% of New York City school children who were handcuffed in 2016 were Black or Latinx. This happens when school resource officers are called into classrooms to discipline students, sometimes for something as small as violating a dress code or grabbing candy from a teacher's desk. If the offense doesn't lead to an arrest, Black and brown students are still subject to harsher punishments than white students. Black students are 4 times more likely to be suspended than their white peers. Sometimes students are kicked out of school for basically just being Black. Like in cases across the country where Black girls were suspended for rocking braids or an afro. So, where do students go after they've been kicked out of school? Research shows they're 3 times more likely to end up in the juvenile justice system within a year. This is all part of an endless cycle. Once kids touch the juvenile justice system, they're 67% more likely to end up in jail again before they're 25. So, what lessons are schools and police really teaching our kids here? How can kids excel in school if they're always being kicked out of them?
All right, folks, just wanted to get the videos out of the way. So, everybody had an idea of what the school to prison pipeline was in a few different perspectives. So, you heard it from multiple people from multiple groups talk about what it was. So you should at least have an idea. If you've never heard the term before, you should at least have an idea of what it is. Before I continue, I do want to, give me a second. I do want to, first of all, get my music back. Then I want to go through and shout out the people that popped in while we were away, or while I was away. Intellectual Soapbox, thank you for popping through, sir. Appreciate you. Go check out his channel. Summer Miss Pies from the Twitch gang, Roberto's Perspective. Make sure you go out and check out his YouTube channel as well. Summer Miss Pies is on Twitch. Great channel as well. A lot of gaming. Let's see. We've got JP, the aspiring matriarch. I'm sure she will be streaming later today, so check her out. Dawn Hart, appreciate you for stopping through. I know I saw Big Rig Slaps, my guy. What's up, brother? Appreciate you for stopping by. Kawaii Bri, YouTube and Twitch. She's by Streamel. So yeah, go check her out on YouTube or Twitch. Kawaii Bri, 123, I believe, on Twitch. It might not have the 123 on YouTube. And the CEO Knowledge and Relationships is in the building. He says, "Good afternoon, everyone." He must be having a sip of coffee because he is #coffee dates. And Riza Neal, thank you for being here. I definitely appreciate you all. But before we go any further, yes, it does. You're right. Thank you. Kawaii Bri 123 on Twitch. So you can see it. Boom. It's like that. All one word, all coupled together. There you go. So go follow her on Twitch, y'all. Go follow her on Twitch, man. She plays Overwatch, but I promise you, even if you don't like video games, the people that play video games are entertaining while they play. Like, they talk and engage you while they're playing the game. So I don't really enjoy other people playing the game because, like, when I'm watching Overwatch, when she's playing it, I don't know what's going on. There's just a bunch of lights and sounds. But the people, the personalities that are on Twitch, the Yella, the Summer, the Kawaii Bri, Miss Nebraska, they're entertaining personalities, and they'll keep you entertained even though they're doing something. I don't know how their brains process both things, playing the game and talking, but they manage. You see, I can barely manage a stream. My audio was all jacked up. I still don't hear the sounds from StreamYard, but I can hear everything else on my computer. So I don't know what that's about. Somebody techie might be able to, point me in the right direction later, because it was working fine earlier. But anyway, I intended on doing a persuasive causal research essay hybrid and maybe that's what this will come out to be. But in any case, I decided to do what felt most natural for me. And as you all know, that's being extra for no good reason. So I know I'm going to lose some of you, AR. But if you stick with me, you will at least learn a little more about my thought influences and the topic as well. But throughout this, when you hear something about disproportionate or overrepresentation of Black or brown people, understand that to mean some. Because Black and brown people aren't the only ones impacted by this phenomenon, this dynamic of over-policing in schools that lends itself to juvenile justice and then the criminal justice systems. Understand it's harmful to everybody. It has harmed some more than others. But today's first question, let me get this pulled up. Today's first question is, and I should have had that scrolling. Nope. Oh, that's my thesis. The school-to-prison dynamic is a completely natural and expectable result of American society. That's my thesis that I'm working towards. I'm going to work you to that end. Now, first question. Is the school-to-prison pipeline even a real thing? Or just, this fan service to AR? Is it another liberal talking point? All right. So that's what we're going to unpack right now. Real quick check in the chat before I go too far. Yeah, Kawaii Bri, yeah, super cool. Nova, let the evil consume you. Oh boy. Yeah, I love the Twitch gang, man. It's a good day to be extra. Yeah. So, man, the school to prison pipeline is a term used to describe the connection between punishments like suspension in school or out, expulsion, and later involvement with the criminal justice system. Black and Hispanic students are far more likely to receive punishments, and y'all know you heard all this already, and harsher punishments in school. And the same phenomena is seen within the prison system. Even the U.S. Government Accountability Office says it this way. And I got to bring up the chart. Sorry, I got to navigate between these screens, y'all. Sorry, y'all. Sorry. I wasn't thinking. Boom. They say it this way. Research has shown that students who experience discipline that removes them from the classroom are more likely to repeat a grade, drop out of school, and become involved in the juvenile justice system. Studies have shown this can result in decreased earning potential over lifetime. It adds costs to society, such as incarceration and lost tax revenue. Black students, boys especially, and students with disabilities are disproportionately disciplined, again, suspensions and expulsions, in K through 12 public schools, according to the GAO's analysis of the Department of Education. National civil rights data for the years, this is 2013 and 14, so it's a little outdated, but again, I know these trends are still prevalent. The most recent available at the time that in the research I was doing, so bear with me. These disparities were widespread and persisted regardless of the type of disciplinary action, level of school poverty, or type of public school attended. For example, Black students accounted for 15.5% of all public school students, but represent almost 40% of students suspended from school. 39% is what they gave. That's an overrepresentation of about 23 percentage points. So even if you don't at this point believe there's a connection between the two, you would have to go against years of scholarly study and even the U.S. government that a lot of you people believe in, that you love so much, that there has to be an issue with the rate at which certain demographics are punished. If you were having an honest conversation, you could make the same admission for the criminal justice system, which is also well studied. The discussion today will not try to prove what is already accepted by people of good intention, but what are the contributing factors, and are the two directly related? All right. So again, section 1 is my smallest section. I'm gonna hit the chat, but I am going to give me a second. Drop the link real quick. All right, I'm gonna drop the link. If you guys want to discuss what has happened so far, we're gonna do that for about 20 minutes or so before I go into section 2. If anybody wants to come up. For some reason, the link did not go out to Twitch. So anybody from Twitch that wants to capture that, I'll try to paste it again for Twitch, but it may not work. Give me a second. I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties today, y'all. Give me a second. I'm going to go over there and put it in myself. I'm going to do it myself. Give me a second. And I'm gonna give y'all the saddest. I'm gonna tell y'all the saddest thing that I've probably ever told you guys. I don't even know how to get to my own Twitch channel. It's embarrassing. I should be able to just click on something. I know I should be. Channel, there we go. Boom. All right. Channel, there we go. All right, boom. Cool. StreamYard has been dropped over at Twitch. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. If nobody comes up to talk about the first portion so far, I'm just going to go ahead and dive into the second portion, guys. But let me catch up on where we are. Good. Let the evil consume you. I remember seeing that. Let's go, Bri. On the dark side, I'm about to pull up on y'all. Yeah, man. Hey, are you able to pull up on nobody? I love Twitch, man. What's not true, AR, man? You just say that's not true, man. What did I say that wasn't true? Or is it something that somebody else? Because anything I researched came from a reputable source, like the U.S. government. I know you trust them. You know, I pledge allegiance to the flag. I know that's you all day long. You probably got 3 flags in your bathroom. Hey, I don't know. That might be a stretch in ya. That might mean I'm doing something totally wrong. But in the meantime, I'll give y'all 2 quick minutes. Because again, each section I get to is going to be progressively longer. Section 3, man, it was a nightmare. But I will move on. Gonna finish cleaning my fridge, but I'm good for now. Cool. All right, y'all. That is no problem. I will dive into section 2. And this one is, again, AR is the resident Republican here. So, and I know he may not really be a Republican, but he voices those opinions a lot of times. So I'm using him to push back against my own ideas. So I would expect AR, if he was being a reasonable person, to say, hey, it's not even a causal link. It's probably, it's correlation, not causation. Here he goes. Look at him. Look at this. Oh my God. Look at my African American. Let me see if I can. Technical issues. Let me see if I can even hear you, man. What's up? Can you say something real quick? I can't hear a thing. Oh my God.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you. Oh. I was like, man, I can't do this today, man. And it's only playing in one ear, man.
Oh, really? Because when I'm streaming, I can't see the clips I put up. So I'm thinking, but everyone else is laughing, and so I was like, at least they've seen it, but I can't see it myself.
Yeah, I've never had that problem. This is the first time I haven't been able to hear my own stuff.
You probably, because you're doing a lot of work, you got to delete some of your files, probably.
But even now, I'm not getting audio in both ears.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so something's up, man. I don't know, but it was great earlier. Yeah, really. Yeah, that's what you get, man.
Listen, man. Listen. Can I talk?
You still there?
Yeah, now I'm here. You hear me?
You still there?
Yeah. You hear me?
Okay. Yeah, where the audio issue is.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you, but I was toggling some stuff in my system to see where.
Okay. When I go to a restaurant, I'm gonna have my bib like this.
I bet, man. So what was the lie, man? You said something was not true or a lie. Let me see your exact words. I'll let you know how the people be like, that's not true. That's not true, Rash.
You don't get. I don't, man. You don't deserve for me to spell your name correct. I don't care. No, I forgot exactly where I was pointing at. There was something you was saying, but you know, well, I think this conversation is different than what I was speaking of. I'm not speaking of children, that young, being, you know, going to jail and so forth like that. And some of the video footage you've shown, is quite disturbing. That parents will, and you know, I can't see my well, I'm echoing. What's that about? Who knows, right? But I can't imagine my child being arrested, you know, at 5 years old. Dude, I'm gonna do a lifetime in jail. And I know Georgia's very strict in the law. I will go to jail for the rest of my life, man. There's just no way I would allow my child to be slammed against the wall. But like in New York City, we have something called school safety, right? So we need armed security. We need, it's NYPD in the school basically, and they have their guns on them. They should have 5 guns on them. But what happened when the schools in the Bronx? You know, due to de Blasio, the prior Democrat mayor, they didn't have no school safety. A girl got shot. 16-year-old, 3 students got shot just last week. 3 students got shot. Bro, I don't think you have any idea how crazy New York City is. It's literally like Gotham. You know, so
from the clips you sent me, man. That's
and I try not to send you so many because I know you probably can block me.
Yeah, that's only like I don't even like doing stuff like this because I don't like dealing with black trauma. Like it's hard. I know it's out there, and I can't absorb too much of it. Like I don't even do like the movies like 12 Years a Slave and The Help and all that stuff, man. I don't even do that because it irks me in a special way. So
yeah, I mean, most of those people I don't feel bad for, right? But when it comes to children, that's different. But what we was discussing before is like the mayhem that they're doing. The people who you shown, they didn't do anything wrong. So I think the person who's their dealt needs to be arrested in the cops in those situations. But I mean, if you go listen, white students do not attend black schools, right? For the majority, they don't. Right? Things you're showing is black children, black students. So if anyone of those schools got arrested, they're gonna be black. So of course the statistic is gonna be correct.
Mm-hmm.
The statistic is gonna be correct because they're all black. So I mean, were we trying to have a pity party or something like that? For those students, I feel bad for them, right? I do. But when it comes to, you know, gunning down and, you know, doing all this craziness, hey, look, right? How many times, Sean, since you feel bad for the black people, right? You people, how many times do you see what? And now, right, every time someone get arrested for doing something crazy, what happened? They have a long rap sheet. And as a matter of fact, the kid that killed it was a 17-year-old kid. He killed a 16-year-old girl. She was on the steps of the high school. She was on the front steps. She didn't even leave the high school yet. She's on the front steps. He was actually out on bail for another crime when if he was locked up, he wouldn't have killed her. All these black people have long criminal records. When the first time they committed a crime, they should have did life sentence. And my other thing too, before you cut me off, I know you're about to do it. I can tell you in your face. Joe Biden, right? He was with the 1990. This is suggested the school being. Yeah, because listen, if you have a school of 99% black, but there's only one white student, of course, most likely is going to be a black. You really think white people are crazy enough to attend a black school? Hell, why would you do that to yourself? Look, right? Harriet Tubman in New York City, horrible school, filled with black people. Malcolm X Boulevard in Harlem, filled with black people. Horrible. Horrible. Martin Luther King School, horrible. It's like crazy. Anywhere where predominantly black people are in, that's like trapped together in the inner city is crazy. It's ridiculous amount of crime that's going on.
Yeah.
Who want to prove me wrong? Who want to pull up and prove me wrong? Come on, man.
Well, that's the whole point. Like you talk about these long rap sheets, but the entire point of this that we're going to dive into is where does that rap sheet start and why? Again, like the videos talked about, like children, it started at preschool. You start getting punished, and I'm going to go into the psychology of it later. I think it's in section 3. But this next section, is it correlation or causation? Is it what you're saying? Hey, they're all criminals anyway. Is it like we're just black and brown people? They're just more prone to criminality anyway. Look at them. Like, so I mean, that's your path. And this next section is actually going to go into your question. And then the third section is actually going to go into the psychology of how we create them by penalizing them consistently through childhood. I'm trying to tell you, with your desire, with your study of human behavior, you'll appreciate what section 3 talks about. Guarantee it. Even you won't agree because you have a built-in bias and you already have a belief structure set up that's anti-black, but you will hear, and again, this doesn't just affect black people. All minorities and disabled people are also criminalized and penalized at a disproportionate rate. So with that being said, it's not just a black thing. It's not just about black people. It's not just about black communities. Other people are impacted by this, but there are reasons that people fall into these patterns. Patterns come from somewhere. They don't just emerge from nothing. Like, I ain't gonna get into the whole existential thing, but about patterns emerging from randomness, order and chaos, but I'm not gonna get into all that. I'm gonna stick with correlation and causation next, and then I'm gonna finish up with section 3, which is going to go into the psychology and a lot more statistics. Section 3 is kind of heavy, but I got about 10 minutes before I get into section 2. Is there anything else you want to say? Because you were talking about Biden before I pulled up a chat.
Yeah, we could forget about him because he was part of the 3-strike law in the 90s, which incriminated a lot of black people, even for selling marijuana, and black people still voted for him. Like, even though I know Inya said that black voting don't matter, okay, it don't matter, but y'all still voted for him though. Even if voting doesn't matter, y'all still voted for him. And, so if we're looking at what the problem is the people who they put like in place, right? I do know for a fact a lot of this has to stem from the lack of parenting. Even a lot of these immigrant parents, right? A lot of them shouldn't be allowed in the country without going through an actual process to understand how the country works. If you look at a lot of the teenagers committing these crimes, not a lot of them, a good amount of them, they're not even from, the parents are not even from this country. So when the parents are not from this country, when you look at the grades, not saying that illegal, listen, they shouldn't even be here, period. Which is, we're about to have another wave of regarding that, right? But no, I believe that most of it, all this is mostly from the parents. Because when those teachers was abusing those kids, my thing is what the parent did about it. Where's the father to beat the shit up where's the father to correct those behavior issues under those adults? Come on, bro, you can't do that to my child. I mean, you should know you're gonna deal with a psychopath if you deal with something like that tell my child you think kids should be beat.
No, that's real. Like I mean, the harm in the children, the way they handle some of the children is because they know a lot of the parents are not involved or don't have the time to be involved. Excuse me, but it's it's a complex social issue because there's a reason why a lot of these people are not involved. Like there's again, there's so many parts to the psychology and the methodology of people. But I'm definitely going to ask you to especially pay attention to part 3 when I get into the psychology part, because there's definitely something at play with how they get to the position they're in. You don't just start with a criminal rap sheet. That starts in like when you're young. You don't just become like 30 and just become a criminal, or 25 and become a criminal. There was a pattern that emerged, and it typically starts in childhood. And what we're talking about today is where a lot of that comes from. See,
now you're not blaming law enforcement, right?
I haven't blamed anybody.
Oh, okay. I think you were saying because of the prison system is the reason why they're behaving this way.
Well, I could make a goofy argument and say they wouldn't be criminals if you didn't have a law that made it a crime. I could make the goofy argument. You know what I'm saying? If you see what I'm saying, but that's a real argument. If there was no law that they were breaking, they wouldn't be breaking the law. So but that's a silly argument, but it's true. But I'm not going that far. What I'm saying is there are patterns of treatment. If I were to slap you every time I saw you, you would start to brace for it. Okay, I know what I'm not trying to go back into Will Smith. Let's reframe. Okay. Okay. If every time I saw you, I called you out of your name, eventually every time you saw me coming, you would have a response. You know what I'm saying? Like even before I said anything, you would be conditioned towards a certain response to either defend yourself or to get away from me. But those tendencies play out over time in society. So people take their eyes off of human tendencies. You know about human behavior. You know how people operate. So if you put a person in a corner, an animal, trapped animal, if you put a person in a corner long enough, they're going to fight their way out. And they're not going to fight their way out the way you want them to. Like, again, these principles kind of overlap in a lot of different systems. But I promise you, if you put people in certain positions, they're not going to respond the civil and moral or ethical way. They're going to do what they need for their survival. And that may not look like what everybody else agrees with. So I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that I have all the answers. What I'm saying is there's a clear and distinguishable pattern that we could interrupt if we had the will to do so. But because I only actually mapped out 3 parts, because I actually had 10, but today I'm probably just doing 3 because it was just too much. I'm not going to tackle everything, which section 4 was specifically for you again. It was aren't black and brown people just inherently criminal? Aren't they just?
Yeah, they are. Absolutely.
Section 4 was for you, man. Section 4 was. I was like, man, let me tackle that question because I know ARs. Hey, man, they're just criminals anyway. But
yeah, that's why. Even for me, that's why I have to fight daily, not to fight my genetics. I honestly believe black people genetically are more active. I would say. Why do you think that black people do sport? Not criminal active. I'm just talking about they have the physical ability to do more than others, I would say. But when that tension, when you have parents that's not paying attention to you and putting you in the right direction, you get labeled ADHD and all this craziness when we're just physically, we have more tension, And there was one more point I wanted to make before you play the video. I think that you are a criminal. No. Enya, no. My father is he's half Irish, so I am half Irish, and my mom is Cuban, Puerto Rican. It's only my grandmother. My father is Trinidadian, so I kind of move. I'm able to. God has allowed me to maneuver the law system based off my genetics. Thank God.
This guy. But yeah, man, let me get ready to dive into section 2, man.
Well, this one real quick. I'm sorry. Sean, do you believe most people, right, that commit crimes, we're talking about repeated offenders, do they smoke weed or drink liquor for the most part?
I don't know.
So they show they do. So if you take away these things that control your alter your behavior, like some people like to drink. Even though liquor tastes bad, they like to drink just so they can feel comfortable. Take away marijuana, drugs, and alcohol, you have a much better aspect of people will start being sober. I know most of us are born because of the fact that our parents were not sober. That's why condom wasn't used. Who's high as fuck, or can you imagine someone be high as fuck, right? Extremely high and drunk, and say, "Hey, I'm gonna put a condom on."
I mean, I hear what you're saying. Only thing I don't like with that argument, I mean, one, I know it's not true, but because I know there's mitigating circumstances. Like there's something that causes somebody to want to get drunk and high. Like Enya talked about in the chat, you want to deal with the root of a thing. Why? I know some traumatized people who get high and get drunk, but it's there it is, who get high and get drunk, but it's typically, like you said, to run from a trauma or a pain. They can't live in their skin. They cannot live in their experience unless they are not in their right mind. They can't be sober minded and deal with their everyday life. One of those people is my sister. Like, I mean, my youngest sister, she's dealt with a lot of stuff. And like you said, a lot of it stemmed from drug use. But I know people who committed crimes completely sober. So the two aren't related. One person is in a bad life situation because of their trauma. The drugs fuel it. Like money, people say like money makes you more who you are. Drugs digs you deeper into a hole. Like it exacerbates a problem. The same way somebody with poor character, money will exacerbate their problems. Drugs exacerbate or make worse somebody's problem. So I mean, drugs are not the reason that people commit these crimes, because lots of people do drugs and just sit in a slumber or fall over in the heat. So it's not the drugs. And I don't want to give anybody that excuse that because you're high, or the mental illness excuse. They're mentally ill. Some people just really have
kids, so they're schizophrenic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I mean, you remember that argument? That's still the argument. Some people really just have poor character, and the drugs are just maybe a way to get into the bad activity easier, like get over that fear. But drugs are not the reason. Some people really just have poor character, and some people it's a way that they see as a necessity. It may not be the right way, but some people, like I know, that don't have any skills will get into drug dealing because there's no barrier to entry. You know what I'm saying? You get into drug dealing easy. It's hard to get a job. You got to clean yourself up. You got to be able to speak proper. You got to get a resume. You got to have some work experience. But you don't have to have that to sell weed. You know what I'm saying? So there are reasons why people do the things they do. Not all of them are acceptable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to hurt somebody because I want to hurt somebody because I'm angry. But I mean, some people, we could interrupt some of these situations if we cared more about other human beings.
Yeah. Ukrainians got reparations, but black people got Katrina Brown Jackson. So that's what y'all got. Also, blacks, y'all got Juneteenth. Y'all should be proud.
Yeah, we got Juneteenth, and what was the other one? There was another symbolic gesture we got. I can't remember what it was. It was another silly thing though. Yeah, but let me head into this next section real quick. I am going to drop you down, but you can come back up, or you can just wait till I'm finished. All right, folks. Yeah, you heard AR. So he's the like I said, man, he's the resident Republican, Trump supporter. I don't think did I get rid of that video? Yeah, it's real quick.
We had an African-American guy who was a fan of mine. Great fan, great guy. In fact, I want to find out what's going on with him. You know what look at my African-American over here. Look at him. Are you the greatest? You know what I'm talking about?
I was muted that whole time. That's embarrassing. I was muted that whole time.
Yeah, I heard one of our the Lord Jesus Christ, God from heaven, sent down to save this country. And y'all are so damn ungrateful not to vote for him. I heard him speak on behalf of my Messiah.
What I was saying was that something about when you came up, somehow my audio fixed. I was able to hear that clip. Like, so,
yeah, because of Donald Trump.
I said it must be the white in you. I said it must be the white in you that makes something.
No, it's because of Donald Trump. Listen, everything that Donald Trump touches, including the stream, goes better. Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but at least I'm back now. I don't need you anymore. Nah. Anyway, guys, this is where I get into a little bit of my philosophy. Like, is it possible that it's correlation and not causation? Of course, anything's possible, but I know a lot of you have heard objects at rest tend to stay at rest. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. That's from Newton's first law. I add that to say that it is logical to conclude that if a person is engaged in a pattern of disciplinary action for their conduct that is overrepresented for their actual activity, this pattern will continue as a general rule. Again, objects in motion tend to stay in motion. If a pattern starts from your childhood and continues in K through 12 for 12 years of your existence, that pattern will become locked into your psyche. It will be hard to disrupt because it will become hardwired into you, because what you do, what you practice is going to how you perform. So they're teaching you through pattern repetition that you're trouble, that you're a problem. You're going to internalize that through 12 years. That's indoctrination. So if you are being overpunished, overcorrected for everything you do, disproportionately along the lines of color or gender or disability level or ability, I don't want to be incorrect, but if you're overcorrected along those lines, that's going to change the way your brain is wired over time. I promise you, because your brain isn't even fully developed until you're 25. I also want to add in a second principle I borrowed from statistics: regression to the mean. If an anomaly or something outside of the normal was to happen, which in life, things happen outside of the norm. Like you have a good day and then you have a bad day. But most days are kind of, in the middle. But to consistently and perpetually over decades be overrepresented against measures for control and studies, for income, for every statistical correction that they can make, you still are overrepresented in the correction system. There has to be some sort of mechanism that is keeping the regression to the mean at bay, because the natural tendency is to fall into the baseline, into normal, into average. Nothing in nature falls away from that pattern. Like flipping a coin so many times, you're going to get towards 50-50 eventually. Why are black and brown people so consistently and unnaturally in the criminal justice, in the juvenile justice, in trouble at school, suspension and expulsion? It's unnatural. So there has to be some sort of mechanism, a human-made social construct that's keeping that up there like that. Let me see. There has to be, how and why do black people disobey scientific law and statistical law? The environment consistently shifts to make sure certain groups have little more value than that of labor. And the economic system that we're in, capitalism, demands that it pay as little as possible while extracting the most value from the people that it marginalizes. So even if you say it's possible that black and brown people are inherently criminal to a 3-to-1 proportion, a 3-to-1 ratio, it could never really be likely. Not if you're being serious at all. So I really want to shout out to Novarain for this article that they sent me to my Discord from educationnext.org, who laid it out like this. In trying to determine if there is a causal link between school and criminal punishments, their analysis shows that young adolescents who attend schools with high suspension rates are substantially more likely to be arrested and jailed as adults. These long-term negative impacts in adulthood apply across a school's population, not just to students who are suspended during their school years. Students assigned to middle schools that are one standard deviation stricter, equivalent to being at the 84th percentile of strictness versus the mean, the average, are 3.2 percentage points more likely to have ever been arrested and 2.5 percentage points more likely to have ever been incarcerated as adults. They're also 1.7 percentage points, more likely to drop out of high school and 2.4 percentage points less likely to attend a 4-year college. These impacts are much larger for Black and Hispanic male students. So again, that's just the baseline student, not even correcting for Black or Hispanic, where the numbers are going to be even higher. They also find that principals who have considerable discretion in meting out school discipline are the major driver of differences in the number of suspensions from one school to the next. In tracking the movements of principals across schools, we see that principals' effects on suspension in one school predicts their effects on suspensions at another. So the punishment follows the person in the body of the principal. So if you go from one school where they're having high punishment rates, that principal transfers to another school, the punishment rates are going to spike the school they go to. These are the external forces I'm talking about, which keep the unnatural system of over-representation. I don't want to call it racism, but there are biases that a lot of people carry, like AR. Excuse me. There are biases that automatically make certain people think that certain groups are causing problems. And it may not even be a bias. It might even be something like ignorance and unfamiliarity, where an innocent behavior might be seen as threatening because you're unfamiliar. Because things that you fear are typically things that you get angry. You know, like, I can't remember the quote right now. Sorry, I got too far into the weeds and I forgot the quote. But people are the unknown. People are afraid of the unknown is what I was going for. So because they're unfamiliar, they're afraid of that behavior. So that happens also because there are cultural differences and class differences, especially from a principal who's probably making 50, 60, 70, 80K. And in some of these urban areas where they're coming from households where there might be 30K tops, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of different divides between the children that are being taught and punished and the people who are doing the teaching. So again, class and culture also affects how the biases run through these people. I hate using that word, these people, but that's a truth that we have to contend with. Going back to the article that Nova sent, their findings show that the early censure of school misbehavior, the early punishment of misbehavior causes increase in adult crime, AR, that there is in fact a school to prison pipeline. Further, we find that the negative impacts from strict disciplinary environments are largest for minorities and males, suggesting that suspension policies expand pre-existing gaps. So there are already gaps that exist. And again, that can go into a lot of things along race and class. But the school suspension policies further expand and exacerbate those gaps in educational attainment and incarceration. We do see some limited evidence of positive effects on academic achievement of white male students, which highlights the potential to increase the achievement of some subgroups by removing disruptive peers. However, any effort to maintain safe and orderly school climates must take into account the clear and negative consequences of exclusionary disciplinary practices for young students, and especially young students of color, which last well into adulthood. And that goes back to the video with, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was a white male standing up and he was talking about the punishments and how these things are tracked out. Everybody's learning from it in the classroom. What's happening to you informs your classmates, black and white. So they see you as a problem as the teacher is making them a problem. So then over time, year after year, you're seeing all your black and brown classmates being hemmed up or being sent to the office and being suspended and expelled. You're going to start to develop that AR mindset of all black and brown people are criminals, because that's what you've seen. All of them have been criminalized. So you internalize the things that you see in your environment. So that's why this dynamic, I believe, even if you don't want to say it's causation, which I believe these facts point to, even if it's correlation, it's such a strong correlation that it can't be dismissed. So that concludes section 2, folks. Let me see where we're at. That was it. Preach. Yeah. Outlier data. So yeah, definitely. Hopefully I'm not muted. God, if I've been muted that whole time. Woo, boy. Post-traumatic mute disorder, boy. I'm be having a dream where I'm on mute. I talked for like 2 hours and I was on mute the whole time. Anyway, let me just make sure I didn't skip over any video. All right, cool. The next couple videos are in section 3. Yeah. Thank you. Is it okay to share some data with you related to this on Discord to look at? Actually, yeah. Go ahead and send me whatever you want to the Discord. I may look at it at another time because I'm not sure if I want to do the other. Because again, I had 10 parts to this, and I'm only doing about 3 parts today. Because the third part of this is the third part today is my longest part. So, bitch. Okay, let me pull it up. Give me a second. Just a chart, slow clap. Bear with me a moment. I am going to pull up Nova's chart and add that so we can see it. If it's just a chart, I can pull it up real quick. If I know what I'm doing. Give me a moment, y'all. I will share the screen. Appreciate you, Inya. Appreciate you. See 2 of them. Good. All right, so Nova sent us. Hopefully everybody can see that. Hey, I appreciate you, Nova. No, definitely. I mean, because this stuff is important. What happens a lot of times, like, and I use AR as a point of entry to people who disagree with things like that. They'll hear like prison to pipeline, or nobody's doing anything to the kids, or they're just bad kids. I mean, people will say things like that, but the truth is nothing happens in a vacuum. Everything that happened, 15 to 20. Oh, I'll stick with these 2. Thank you, Nova. But nothing happens in a vacuum. Everything comes from something. So if we're having a lot of criminality in a community, and we're seeing also the same kind of increased activity in youth criminality or juvenile justice, if we're having the same thing, juvenile to adult, they're not separate. It's the same people trending into adulthood. Well, what is happening in their childhood that's leading them towards criminality? Well, then you go and, like you said, Inya said, go and look at the root. So here we got impact on instruction due to out-of-school suspension by race, and separately for students with disabilities K through 12. All right, K through 12 is in blue, elementary is in red, secondary is in green. And days lost per 100 enrolled students. So it's real bad in secondary. K through 12 is bad. Elementary is not so bad for anybody. It seems like it's the least impactful in elementary. But that's when they're the youngest. That makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Then K through 12. And then secondary, that's college or university for some. But yeah, for black people, my gosh. They're losing over 103 days per every 100 students enrolled in secondary education. Man, that's very, again, and it's this also tracks if you look at income, because they always talk about the income disparity, and they always talk about what Asians have a higher average. Asians have a higher average wealth than white people. Man, look at this. Asians have a lower days lost per 100 enrolled students than white people as well. The outcomes for Asians, for whatever reason, and I haven't studied this at all, the outcomes for Asians in America outpaces anybody else. And it seems like this goes through everything. Education, income, and again, I believe in everything being connected. Education and income are connected. So also punishment and penalization or prison would also be connected. Like you can't have one without the other. They're feeder systems. Your education leads to what you can income. So I mean, you know what's input is what your output. Whatever you put in is what comes out. So I mean, this stuff is definitely all related, man. But some people, it's hard to take it all in. It's hard to see it. It's hard to see it as one big picture, and I get that. Trends in out-of-school suspension rates by race. Yeah, so like you see this big red line, everybody. Yeah, it was already twice as much as the Latinx and white population in 72, 73. But it shot up to more than 16% in 2009. I don't know what was going on in 2009. I know that's right after the housing crisis in 2008. So I mean, maybe they were having again. A lot of people were having, because there are multiple factors that come into play. So people not having food insecurity, housing insecurity, things like that impact the way children are able to learn and function in society. And we send them to school. I mean, doing our best. I mean, shoot, you're doing your best. I get it. But if they're hungry and don't know where they're going to be at, don't know where they're going to live from day to day, month to month, week to week, they're not going to be able to function well at school. I mean, I was one of those kids, man. I grew up poor. Section 8, welfare, moving. So, I mean, I get it. And it's hard to function in that environment. I mean, especially when, they want you to sit still all day. Your mind is thinking about what's going to go happen at home. Are you moving next month? Are you, all that stuff matters, man. But it's easy to dismiss it because it's hard to make the connections. But everything is connected. What goes on in your environment when you're a child is going to follow you to school. The same way people who are having problems at home, their work life suffers. So, I mean, consider school the work life of a child. There's no way to divorce your home life from your school life if you're a child. And they have less coping mechanisms and less tools to deal with the problems because they don't have autonomy. They're not making these choices. And we struggle with that as adults. Of course, we're going to have that same problem in kids, and it's going to be worse because they don't have our tools. They don't have our ability to, I'm just going to go for a drive when I feel like it. I'm going to go for a walk when I feel like it. They have to ask permission from everybody all day at school and then come home to ask permission and do chores. They don't have autonomy, and we're expecting them to have better outcomes at childhood than we do as adults, and that's unrealistic. Hey, K Summer. Appreciate you. Another Twitch gang resident. Appreciate y'all. In elementary school, that's when black boys don't appear like threats to teachers. Yeah, that's true. And I had to tell my nephew that as probably when he was around 10 or 11, because he had, again, like I said, about one of my sisters, drugs and imprisonment. So he had to deal without his parents. So he had anger issues. And I had to tell him, the older you get, and the larger you get, the more of a threat you're going to appear in the world. And almost everybody you're interacting with is a woman. In the family, at school, the teachers, they're going to be smaller than you, or even if they're not smaller than you, you're just going to be seen as a threat. And you cannot allow yourself the luxury of anger in a demonstrable way. You can't demonstrate your anger and it be safe for you. The older you get, the less safe it's going to become for you because your anger is going to be seen as a threat, and people respond to threats in any number of ways, and you cannot control how they respond. And the last thing I wanted was him getting thrown around like some of those kids, or even cuffed, like AR was talking about, even cuffed as a child because he was having a temper tantrum. I mean, yelling. What schools are these stats done on? Hey, listen. I'm trying to tell you, man, AR, there are so many studies from so many schools and so many districts and so many pockets of districts. Excuse me. They're being done by so many different groups of people, public interest groups, governmental groups, higher education. I mean, so the stats are out there. You can look them up for yourself. You don't have to take my word for anything because there's so much data out there. You can look at it and interpret it for yourself. Through whatever lens you decide to look through. All I'm saying is that if everybody, because I don't think I've used one source twice, and I mean through these different things. These are coming from Nova. The stuff I pulled some with Government Accountability Office, and there was some through the school system, and all four of those videos. These people, all of these different groups that are pulling stats up and doing these studies. Because nobody really has an answer, because nobody has the will and the resources that they're going to invest in the children at an early age to disrupt these patterns. Hey, man. AR is a trouble case, and yeah, AR he's a nice guy, but sometimes he just doesn't want to get it. But I get it, man. He really wants to see people do better. He's heavy on personal responsibility, which I get. But personal responsibility is hindered when your childhood has been disrupted. and you haven't learned responsibility or accountability. So it's hard to then shift and pivot because you turned 18 to become an upstanding citizen when nobody poured upstanding citizen into you, because you can only put out what you have in you, and nobody put that in you. Again, they, like Nova said, you're seen as a threat, so you act as a threat. You're treated like a bully, so you become a bully. Like it's hard not to internalize the images and notions that people put upon you. It happens a lot, again, through a different way. What the hopes and dreams of your parents, it's hard to resist those if you have your own wants and needs for your life, because they'll want you to go to a certain college or whatever. But again, the outside expectations of other people, they do influence the person you become. So there's no way to say that these children can be. Children do not have, and they're malleable, they're susceptible to influence, they're being taught, they're in a place to learn. You're sending them there to learn. It would be impossible for you to say, I'm going to send you here to learn. These are your instructors. Listen to what they say and do what they tell you, and them not to absorb something from these people, even if it's negative expectations, which again, I'm going to dive into in section 3. So again, AR or anybody else, if you want to come up and talk about section 2 before I dive into section 3, I am going to drop that link one more time. Come up. We got about, I don't know, I went through section 2 faster than expected, so I might go through section 3 faster than expected. The issues parents of students with black parents. AR, man, he stays on. If anybody was on black people, AR is on black people, boy. They got to do better, because AR is on their necks. That's our necks. This is meta-analysis from UCLA that got published and reviewed. It's not just nitpicking and shit like some BuzzFeed article. And it doesn't matter. Listen, if Jesus came down with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and a study and handed it to AR would take the fish, eat the bread, and tell them the study was shite, because it said black people weren't as bad as as previously believed. AR does not like, or is it George Bush? AR does not like black people. Let me quit. But yeah, I really appreciate those what do you call that? I'm starting to lose it, y'all. I'm starting to lose it. Those charts. I appreciate those charts, Nova, because they do illustrate like this. The patterns are too consistent across different areas of the youth relationship to the power structure of school and in prison. Like, it's too consistent, and there's no regression to the mean. They never fall back to a normal status. It's always elevated. There's something that does that. Yeah. Could be that there's no explanation why the stats look this way. The numbers just show blacks are affected by suspension more. Yeah. But it could also be the school system itself. Yes, that's right, they are. He is a very nice guy. Humans are, yes, we internalize social cues. If we didn't, we'd just be psychopaths. Absolutely. So yeah, I'll give it about 2 minutes here. I'll sip on some water. Now I'm gonna head to the music. Then we'll dive into section 3, y'all. Section 3. Yeah, you people next. Did you grow up in NYC in the hood? Supposedly he did. Hey, Miss Nebraska, that's another Twitch gang. Twitch gang. I love Twitch. I love the people over there at Twitch. Everybody, man, please go over to Twitch. Check out Miss Nebraska. She has fun podcasts throughout the week, inspirational on Sunday. So please go check out Miss Nebraska along with the other Twitchers. Kawaii Bri, Summer Mince Pies, Man Yella. I think Brother Darkness is stepping away from Twitch a little bit, and I think he's gonna focus more on his YouTube, he said. But yeah, I'm glad you made it too. Yeah, definitely. Everybody go check them out. And we got Take It Home Podcast. Salute. Appreciate you for being here. Thank you, Fran. You're so sweet. Now I appreciate you. I mean, honestly, because you have great content. So I really enjoy the people over at Twitch. And I don't think Nova has a channel, but they need a channel. Nova needs a channel because Nova is hilarious. Nova is hilarious. All right, guys, if nobody is coming up to talk about section 2, I'm going to take a quick, little sippy sip break, dive into section 3. Realized after I did that, I could have turned the cam off so y'all had to see me sipping. Yes, real talk with MimzyLimz. She just joined Twitch. Drop your Twitch links and I can follow y'all. Let me make sure. I'm sorry, y'all. I gotta make sure everybody's a mod. So y'all can drop y'all's own links. I don't gotta. Anybody on YouTube, you can drop your links. Everybody on Twitch. Sorry. I apologize. Excuse me. I apologize to the Twitch supporters that I have not put the time in to build up the Twitch platform. So I really, really appreciate the fact that you guys support without me having any of the bells and whistles. I don't have any of the emotes. I don't have any of the automated stuff. So the fact that you guys still rock out over there, man, I appreciate y'all so much. Because, man, showing up to a spot and y'all ain't getting offered nothing, man, woo. Because I love the emotes. I come for the emotes. I stay for the free cheesecake. What's up? Welcome back, man. Welcome back. Yeah, go ahead, Captain America. Go ahead, man. Go ahead, Cap.
Listen, right? These studies, so most. Oh, I thought that was me. I was like, what happened?
That is you. Go ahead about the studies.
These studies were most likely done. I'm echoing. Why is that? Let me see something.
Might be me.
Okay. These studies. Can you hear me? Okay. These studies were done in black schools. So if these studies are done in black schools, if a student gets suspended, guess what color they're going to be? They're going to be black. These studies are not done.
Man, listen. Hold up. Can you hear me now? Are you still echoing? Okay. All these studies are not done in black schools. These studies are from large swaths and groups of people. Some of them that I got, and I'm gonna get into the stats of, some of them were done in like Oklahoma and stuff like that. There's not like a large black population in Bumtucky. You know what I'm saying? Like, like, what are you getting at? All these stats are not coming out of Philadelphia, Detroit, Cleveland, and Houston. Like, all of these stats from all these different agencies and school systems, like, the stats are consistent across systems where black, brown, and white people go to school, which, I know you don't want to believe in stats, and you don't have to, but you have to believe your own mind at least. And your own mind believes that black and brown people are more engaged in criminal activity. So then the natural question would be, why is that? And where does it start? And then if you know that they're starting out, like you're saying, they're starting out 14, 15, you keep sending me clips of 13, 14, 15-year-olds. Well, that means we're not talking about adults. We're talking about young people. Where are the young people picking up these criminalistic tendencies, right? Yeah, black and brown people is funny, but I'm just black people are exactly. I know, but I'm using the terms that we've been given. African Americans, you want me to use African Americans? I don't really, because that's a whole nother thing. I wanted to have a show where I talked about should we even use these labels, but as far as black and Latino, there you go with the Fleece Johnson, man. Not that one. I can't deal with Fleece Johnson. Can you get rid of Fleece? Can you get rid of Fleece? I don't want to look at Fleece. I'm not going there. I'm not going.
I was having some issues.
Nah. But yeah, man.
It starts from the home. Listen. And whose home is it? Black homes, right? So you have the black students that's having these black issues, right? And what's he saying?
Hold up, we're gonna get back down to that one. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Right. So we have black students that are having black issues, right? The black students having these behavior issues, their parents are most likely black, right? So I'm correct. It's black people.
That's the only cause. You have a black parent, that's why you're a criminal.
No, no, that's not. Yeah, I just not what I. That's not what I said. But I believe a lot of it has to do with. Um, I believe most of it has to do with drugs, and that's what I believe that why a lot of the parents. I grew up in the '90s. Oh, yeah. Wow. I gotta go shut the window, but let me.
Hey, go ahead. Simma, definitely, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, it does start at home, but what shapes the home? And nobody stays at home. The parents go out into the workforce. The children go into the school. If the only influence was the home, I mean, that would be great. But that's not the scope of what the influences and the environment are. So if we're going to lay everything at the home, then man, everything needs to be provided for the home so that nobody has to leave it. So we can't let that be the anchor. That can't be the anchor point because that's not realistic. Everybody can't stay in the house. They go outside and they see other people and they have other influences and they have other interactions. That's how society's set up. So it can't be just, oh, you came from a black home and that's it. It's on them. But then what about all these other people that influence you? That you sent to compulsory school where you have to go and be taught. Again, in our society, you can do homeschooling, but then you have to have the sufficient means to take care of your family while you're homeschooling. Everybody doesn't have that, especially in urban cities where it's densely populated. You can't have a farm. You're not going to have like room to grow crops or raise animals. So, I mean, we have to couch this in the reality that people live in, not the one we want to see. But go ahead.
So home by AR can describe these type of household, but what is it? But can AR describe these type household in details? I mean, I can't tell you there's a lot of households, so kind of hard to describe the household, but I do believe a lot of it has to do with drugs and alcohol has a huge reason why these things are happening, and marijuana is a drug included as well, and it should not be legal. Most of the people I believe that do commit crimes, I believe they do have some sort of drug inside the system, or they have smoked weed during some time, and I believe that there are things inside the weed because a lot of people that smoke weed are committing are having a lot of unusual behaviors. Marijuana is supposed to make you very calm, but people are actually becoming more hyper. That's why that 304 Sha'Carri Richardson was able to, even though she was smoking weed, she was able to win the race. Now that she's not smoking weed, she can't. She doesn't run fast enough where her track can fall off her head.
Definitely appreciate you, Miss Nebraska. Yeah, if you can, I guess that gets me some more eyeballs. So if you host me on Twitch, y'all, I really appreciate that. Definitely appreciate you, Miss Nebraska. Definitely. And Simma spoke to the home as your greatest source of influence, which is true. That would be the case, except for in a lot of these households, the families are it's not just broken institutions. Because I think Nova said that. Somebody said something about a broken institution. Yeah. The home. But personally, I think the institutions are pretty broken too, at least. Absolutely. It's not just the institutions. The families, because we talk about this, we can't divorce these things. The families are broken too. We're over here talking about, when we get into our little manosphere thing, we're talking about 80% of the homes are by single women and the fathers, da. Then over here we get to the kids. Oh, it all starts with the home. But we already know the home is broken because we're already having these other conversations. So if we know the home and the family is broken, and we're telling you that, okay, now look at this, the institutions that we're sending the kids to are also broken, I don't think it's unreasonable to say, let's just take a look at it. Maybe there's something we can do, because we can't make two adults be in relationship with each other. We can't do that. We can't force that, but we can fix the institutions because those are funded by taxpayer dollars. So there are things we can do more easily on the public side versus the personal side. The same thing, and I know I want to trigger you. It's the same thing with, why don't you protest the gangbangers and not the police? The police are the public-facing side. There are people you can hold accountable, and they're being publicly funded. We're not publicly funding the gangbangers, and there's no headquarters to protest that. You know what I'm saying? So those same arguments, across different systems, it's easier to affect change at a public level than it is at a personal level. I can't make you do what I want, but we can exert enough pressure on a politician or a police commissioner or the school board or whoever's the head of the principal. Sorry, brain fart. We can exert pressure publicly on these people and get changes made that are more. Yeah, it's easier to do that than it's easier for us to get a principal to move on something. Because me and my nephew got the principal to change the dress code at his high school, so it's possible. Like you can do small things, but I can never make AR be who I want him to be. I can never make you do what I want.
We need marijuana does not increase violence either. Well, what I'm saying is that you know, if you're into stats, you can look up what's happening in the water of Chicago. That there was a percentage of heroin and crack inside the faucet water. That study is still being done in Chicago. So when you look at these, I mean, when you look at these, you gotta remember, New York City crime rate always been high, but our crime rate went over 400% crime rate when the shot came out. When the shot came out and they was going from door to door and giving that. I don't know about these things, right? When that was happening, I think it was announced like in end of January is when they announced that this illness, or maybe I'm trying not to use the words out there, but that was January 2018. September is when my sister-in-law went into the hospital because she wasn't feeling well, and they tested for corona, the virus. They tested her for that, and they put her in an isolate. So the government already knew about that back in August of 2018. It came out in 2019, right?
What was that?
2020? 2020?
That was 19.
It was
March.
2019?
Yeah.
March. Okay, they already knew about that 2018, but I believe most of it is due to drugs, and I believe we do know a lot of the marijuana now has they lace in with a lot of fentanyl, and I don't believe it's the drug dealers is doing it. Obviously, government funded, right? What is this? A stat? Well, I mean,
it's a chart that Nova sent when you talked about the drugs. Cannabis being the most dangerous drug. So I guess this is mortality rates, loss of relationships, injury, crime, environmental damage, community, all that stuff of each drug broken down. And cannabis is like what, number 7 in the list? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So weed isn't the most. He's saying that weed is not the most dangerous drug.
No, weed itself doesn't harm you, but it does change your behavior. Your behavior, right? The normal, if I normally would do this and that, due to me smoking marijuana, I probably won't do this and that, or I probably will do it. And especially the way marijuana today is not the same marijuana you would get if you was growing it naturally yourself. That's why they got this all different moon rock. They have all this different powerful, and it's laced with different things. And I believe that's what basically caused. But drugs is a really, really high. If you look at a lot of the households, right? A lot of the government assistant households, the parents are on something. Most of the time, not all, but most of the time, a lot of the parents I deal with, they're on something. May not hard, but they smoke weed, cigarette, or alcohol. They take alcohol consumption, or they're just mental issues, or they just have they're just really fucked up people. But it definitely does. It starts from home. So the only solution to all this, right?
Jesus. Go ahead, my fault. The
only solution to this really is suspended being. I mean, yeah. But I mean, the thing about it is that you have to stop low-income people from reproducing. That's the issue.
Oh, Jesus. Did you just say sterilize poor people? Is that what I just heard you say? Sterilize poor people. Is that what I just heard you say?
Look at a lot of the crime, the violent crime that's happening. Not all. I'm pretty sure most of the violent crimes are happening for households under $100,000. A lot of the most violent crime is done in households under 100,000. So why should you allow them to reproduce? And I don't believe in abortions either, or cancel it. I don't even believe in that. But I believe that there should be some restrictions on that until people are able to accomplish certain things. A lot of these men that's having kids, that's stepping out on their children, stepping out on their family, should not be reproducing until they can accomplish something. Now, if they can't accomplish something, guess what? I won't have to worry about getting robbed most of the time.
And that was a hot take, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was a hot take. I wish I was prepared. I would have done a sound effect or something. I might.
What?
I mean, something, boy. Like, what? Yo.
Oh, Sean, you know I'm right.
Now listen. I typically don't divulge my true opinion when I'm talking. I just share a perspective. I don't give my true opinion. But I really do wish there was some mechanism where we could enforce relationships and child bearing better. I wish we could do better, but there's no way to force, like, other than like was that tyranny, other than being a totalitarian state, there's no real way to control people. Like, we can't have this freedom here and then like control people here. Like, but man, we do need to do better. But man, what you're talking about though.
Yeah, because but what I'm talking about, I'm not saying, I'm maybe forced birth control for men and women. Forced birth control. You want to get off this stuff? You don't like the stuff inside your system? Okay, what have you accomplished in life?
I mean,
you're a government assistant. Listen, you're a government assistant. There's some real strong, capable men on government assistance. If he
for a baby, NK for a baby.
Yeah, I don't think you should. I don't think it's really the income level. I think it's mostly accomplishments.
I'm still in this from I'm still in that from knowledge and relationships. Shout out to Intellectual Soapbox. Welcome, MimzyLimz.
What's up, everybody?
How you doing today?
Fantastic. I figured I'd join you guys while I did my duties.
That's right. Appreciate you. Definitely appreciate you coming up. Yeah, and as hard as it is to hear, he has a point. Francis Cress Welsing says something similar. Now, I do know there is a problem. I just don't know in our current system how we can fix it, because, again, I know he didn't really say forced sterilization, but I promise you, man, we have licenses for fishing, but we don't have licenses for hookups. You know what I'm saying? Like, there needs to be something, man. There needs to be something. I don't know. I don't have a solution. I don't have the answers, y'all. But what do you think, Mims? What do you think on that?
I think that people need to stop fornicating until they're ready to, have babies. Okay, keep it in your pants, and if you can't afford them, don't make them.
Yeah, I mean that sounds great. That sounds great, man. But I'm trying to tell you, the people that can't afford them, they don't really care. They're having sex. A lot of them are having sex and not family.
Right. That's the problem, though.
So they're not going to listen. So what can we do, knowing that they're not going to listen? They're not going to listen to reason because they've got no reason to listen. They don't have anything. They're not going to listen to reason because they have no reason to listen. Put that on the t-shirt, AR. Yeah, 24-hour schooling will work also.
No, 24-hour school won't work because we have horrible parents. The issue is that even during last year when the kids was staying home, there was an increase of abuse. Even when it was doing it was pretty much homeschooling, and you would see we on my nephew, and you would see the mom half naked camera, and it's like, or you see like these different men in and out the house, or the kids like, I didn't even get a chance to eat yet. Yo, it's 11 o'clock in the afternoon, and the kid's saying he didn't get a chance to eat yet.
Man,
and if you report her, the kid's gonna get abused even more.
Is it just me, or is AR echoing, or am I echoing
too?
I'm not hearing the echo.
Okay,
but I'm already having audio issues, so I'm sure I'm the one causing it too. Like, because my settings are jacked.
You have YouTube open, or Sean, as well? No, okay.
I was just asking because I'm on the iPad.
Yeah, but I know because I am routing my audio through something so I can play the music. I know that's what caused all my audio issues today. But I mean, it was fine. I tested it out earlier. It was fine. But then when I put the computer to sleep and came back to it, everything was off. But let's talk about people who are deemed incompetent by the state, but are able to still have kids and raise them. Hey, I see, but there's a spectrum. Like, there's a whole range. There's a whole range of ways to live. There are people in, dirt poor lifestyles in other countries that raise children without money. You know what I'm saying? It's about means and resources, but there are people who, on both sides of what Mr. Braska's saying, there are people who are deemed incompetent who do take care of and raise children, and there are people who are deemed incompetent who are, man, their kids are running the world, like they're running the streets. Like, we have like both sides of that coin going at the same time. There needs to be some sort of social, I would love for there to be some sort of social control on certain things, but I don't want to start it on childbirth. That's not where I want to put the emphasis. I would rather start, like we were talking about institutions with Nova. As far as institutions, I would rather start it with the children that are here. Let's take care of them first. If we can take care of the ones that are already here, well, then let's move on to the ones that are not. Like maybe if we can do one thing, like Jordan Peterson, clean your room. Like, let's just pick one thing, and if we can solve that and work towards a intelligent solution that is not harmful to a certain demographic, because all of our decisions seem to be, well, somebody's getting left out. If we can find a win-win for different types of demographics, Black people, white people, Asians, Hispanic, poor, rich, you know what I'm saying, all the different classes, if we can find something where everybody benefits in some capacity, maybe not the same capacity, it doesn't have to be equality, it could be equity. If we could do that in one aspect, and I think the children should be the one aspect we care the most about, because I believe the children are our future. I mean, if we're going to believe that, let's take care of them. Let's get them right. And if we get them right, let's move on to the next thing. But we got our hands in so many different pies, man, that all of them are tainted. Like, let's just get one right. That's like, hold on. I got this one. We don't have to try to fix everything. I can't find. I got too many videos, y'all. There it is. We ain't got to fix all of them. We just got to
save one. What? Save one person.
So we just need to save one group of people. Like, not just one person. We're gonna let's say the kids. If we can save the children, the ones that are already here on this earth, sucking up oxygen, let's get them right. Let's get the school to prison pipeline. Let's pull them out of that, and let's put them on paths to success, so that they're not the state-dependent, criminalized individuals that are sucking up resources. They are contributors to our society. And if we did that, then we can move forward to something else. But right now, again, our minds are so divided on all these different topics that we're not doing any one thing well. I was at a mile wide and an inch deep. Like, that's how our society is. We're spread out over so many different things that we're not solving anything more than an inch. Well, women need to submit. I mean, that's as far as we can go. Our mental capacity is limited to such small arguments on small topics. But that was a rant. Sorry, my fault. AR, Mimzy, go ahead and jump in. I'm gonna pull these comments up. Sorry.
Listen, you can't attack one thing and not attack it all at once. Number one, get rid of illegals, right? To free up the funding. All illegals gotta go, right? I don't care where you gotta put them in the ocean. Get rid of illegals. They're illegal. They're criminals. They're illegals. I'm not talking about legal people. Get rid of illegals. That's gonna free up and stop sending money to other countries. You have Black kids that's right across the street from you that needs funding, but you'll send millions and billions of dollars to Africa. Who gives a fuck? All right. The first thing you need to do, get rid of illegals. And then also, bro, you gotta understand. Anytime you're talking about create like some sort of facility, right? A facility or something like that. The government's corrupted. So even in public schools, a lot of this public school funding is being stolen. So you can't even create some sort of facility or something like that because it's going to be corrupted there. You're going to have child molestation in these, like, it's so much security and stuff you got to involve. And how can you put them in these detention centers or whatever you want to call them when if they go back home, that father is still molesting them? The parents got to be held accountable because if you have a bad child, the parent need to be dealt with.
And that's part of. And I want to welcome to the stage, Marcus. Marcus, are you critically sober today? I forgot.
Yeah. What's up, guys? How y'all doing? What's up, AR? What's up, Arshawn? What's up, MZ?
What's up, man?
What's up, brother?
How you doing? No, I heard you guys talking about some pretty heavy stuff, some stuff that I'm involved with that are working with Uncle Sam, that I see a lot, especially towards the border and across from both sides. So I just wanted to talk with you guys, see how y'all are doing, and
Yeah. What perspective do you have to share with us as an insider to the what we're doing?
well, I agree that severe background check and like a probation period should be initiated for people that are crossing the border, whether they're illegal or legal immigrant coming in, to make sure they're not criminals, make sure they're not doing the bad stuff that they're saying they are. Because you have hardworking illegals that aren't criminals, but you have illegals that are degenerates, right? They're doing bad things. They're hurting the country. I also know, like, seeing stuff, people behind cages is not a good thing. Certain things that the media has covered, certain things that the media has not covered or stopped pushing the envelope for, because there's other issues as well that are to be had around the nation. And you see like a huge. You guys are older than me, so you've seen like the crack epidemic, the cocaine epidemic. Now to the most leading lethal drug right now, which is fentanyl. And that's an issue, because now you have the huge demand, which is America. It's the number one demand of all the customers around the globe. For some reason, it's America, a first world country. And, we have this issue where these people that are drug dealers, or we have traffickers, we have them shaking hands with certain people that are involved, shake hands with politicians, the pharmaceutical industries that make multi-billions a year. And now they have this leverage. In other countries, they're ruling their places. And so they become known as narco democracies. And we're into the situation now, and in the belly of the beast. So, but I'm listening to you guys, so I don't want to go that long on a rant,
I appreciate you, man. I mean, 'cause again, like you said, you have a perspective dealing with different aspects of it. So, I mean, it's important that we get different aspects, like different perspectives on the idea, because anything we hope to solve, we have to see first. We can't fix anything we can't understand. So we have to wrap our heads around it. And I think, like Take It Home podcast said, it's long overdue that the children should have been the priority. Like, we should have worked on that first. And I know AR said we need to take on everything, but then he went to the home. But I'm saying the children should have been a priority. So not just school, but the home too. But like, let's just focus on that. Let's just focus on the welfare, excuse me, and the proper upbringing of children from start to finish. You know what I'm saying? From birth to 18, or before birth, prenatal. You know what I'm saying? Let's get everything right for children, so that people have a proper platform to step from into life, because they don't have any autonomy from a certain age until like 18, where they're legally the age of majority, as they say. So until that point, man, we should be having social structures to prop them up, and not so much to prop up maybe some of us adults. Like, I mean, there should be better safeguards for the children to protect them, not just their safety, but the things that they go through also. The disparities in punishing and policing should not be allowed for children, because that's going to stigmatize them, not only in their peer group, but in their own mind. They're going to internalize that less than nature, that less than, there's something wrong with me, I'm defective, because they haven't even developed a proper perspective on life and the world that they live in, to understand their role in it and what's happening. Like Plato's allegory of the caves, they haven't even seen the true light. They're only seeing through other people's prisms. So, I mean, I really don't want to go too deep into it, but before I go into section 3, but let's go around real quick, and I'm gonna go into section 3. Mims, you've been quiet for a minute. Anything you want to say before I head to section 3? All right, Marcus, anything you want to say before I head to section 3?
Is this based on the kids, as far as the welfare and all that kind of stuff? Well, I had a question for you. Guys, real quick. Do you guys think the juvenile center is actually helping or hurting the kids when they come out of juvie?
I don't think any of this. I'll let you answer. I want to hear what you got to say first.
When they come out juvenile, do I think that they're like rehabilitated? They're better. No, I don't think prison was designed to make them better. I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think anything in our justice system was designed to make. We're augmenting the justice system now to try to do corrections, but even though it was called rehabilitation and corrections, a lot of times there wasn't a lot of rehabilitation. And even if they came out into society, things like their degrees and things like that weren't respected or honored because they had that. A lot of people have felonies, or you got the background. You're not passing background checks. So I mean, is it true rehabilitation if all the learning you get you can't apply? So they're now trying to do things like the restorative justice and other diversionary programs to keep people out of jail. So those type of things, I believe, are what's needed, even at a juvenile level, to keep people out of prison, because that's really just locking away problems. We don't want to see you for a period of time because of the way you're behaving. You just go cool off and think about it for a few years. So I don't think anything in the way it was working was meant to benefit people. It was meant to benefit society at large by locking away the problem people. But now they're trying to rehabilitate, and they are trying to, for a lot of the drug stuff, they're trying to decriminalize drugs and trying to, rehabilitate, not criminally, but trying to get people off drugs, rehab, trying to give people drug treatment. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, so now we're moving towards a better way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree with you guys on that. I'll even add more layers to it. I think it's more capitalistically, and it's also like a slave labor force as well. On top of that. Mimzy, are you there?
She must be taking care of the bambinos.
It's all good. No worries. Responsibilities.
All right, AR, you got one last parting shot.
I believe that if you create these facilities, whatever the case may be, right, you're taking off the responsibility of the parent, right? Because what happens with the parent, they go about their way. Okay, you babysit my child for a few hours. Okay, great. That's even better for me. I can get high even longer. So the issue is that the kids will behave better if you correct the parents. But the issue also is that a lot of these parents don't want to be corrected. So these parents need to be arrested as well. But the issue, there's so many different issues. You put a child in foster care. Foster care is foster care is prison as well, in a sense. But the people that are, yeah, man, I just think that I believe our biggest problem are Democrats. Because if everything you named, every problem, name a problem. Get it, Rashawn, name a problem in America.
Drugs.
Okay,
the devil.
Okay, there you go, Joe Biden. She just said Joe Biden.
Let's go, Brandon, people.
Okay, Stitch.
Gang violence.
The devil.
Democratic Grand City, right? Even black. Well, I know mostly I probably don't agree with Black Lives Matter, so I'm gonna leave that alone.
The devil.
Look at y'all. They stole all that money. I told y'all. Listen, y'all can say I'm wrong. That's fine. But look at everything that's happening. Democratic Grand City. What was that bastard name that passed away? The guy in Baltimore. The black dude in Baltimore, the bald-headed black dude that stole $20 billion and then he so happened to die. Elijah Cummings, $20 billion over a 20-year period. His city has received $20 billion. And he called Trump racist when Trump said, okay, provide proof exactly where these funds went.
What's the matter with you?
Now, you saying what's the matter with me, but look at all the funds for all these. There's always been Boys and Girls program. There's always been programs. The issue is where the money's going. It's not going to the kids.
Does anybody know where it's going? I can tell you.
The devil?
It's going right to the devil.
Yo, she's wild.
All right, guys, listen. I'm getting ready to tackle section 3. I'm gonna drop you guys off. If you want to come back, or if you want to hang out in the back, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll drop the link again when I finish section 3. All right. All right. My fault, Marcus. You gonna say something?
No, I said that's cool, man. Do your thing, bro.
All right, cool. All right, folks, man. I definitely appreciate y'all for chopping it up on section 2. Section 3, oh gosh, yeah, oh gosh, I don't even know if I want to do this. But let me compose myself. All right, so section 3, guys, section 3. How did it happen? Sorry, I'm not doing this in the right way. Boom. And I forgot to put up section 2, sorry. But section 3, how did it happen? W.E.B. Du Bois. They don't say Du Bois. Sorry. Black Reconstruction in America. The slave went free, stood a brief moment in the sun, then moved back again towards slavery. And I believe Marcus himself mentioned the free labor piece, so we will be talking a little bit about that, actually. That's going to come up. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. Let me mute. Oh, that racism was getting stuck in my throat. Woo! Okay. Ooh, too much conservative. I'm allergic. Anyway, U.S. News and World Report discusses history as being made by human actors and the choices they make. So the answers have to also involve a complex web of factors: systemic inequity, targeted community divestment, legislative neglect, Elijah Cummings maybe, mental health needs, AR, environmental contamination, Flint, are among them. And at some point, if we're brave enough to have to throw in the will to do better at any cost on the masses, also known as personal responsibility. Yes, I'm willing to admit, AR, that we play a part. We gotta do better. That's the last time I'm gonna say it though. According to Douglas Blackman, author of Slavery by Another Name, the choices made by Southern white supremacists after abolition and the rest of the country's accommodation explain more about the current state of American life, black and white, than the antebellum slavery that preceded. Designed to reverse black advances, redemption was an organized effort by white merchants, planters, businessmen, and politicians that followed Reconstruction. Redeemers employed vicious racial violence and state legislation as tools to prevent black citizenship and equality promised under the 14th and 15th Amendments. By the early 1900s, nearly every Southern state had barred black citizens not only from voting, but also from serving in public office, on juries, and in administration of the justice system. The South's new racial caste system was not merely political and social, it was thoroughly economic. Slavery had made the South's agriculture-based economy the most powerful force in the global cotton market, but the Civil War devastated this economy. How to build a new one? Ironically, white leaders found a solution in the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery in the United States in 1865 by exploiting the provision allowing slavery and involuntary servitude to continue as punishment for a crime. They took advantage of a penal system predating the Civil War and used even during Reconstruction. Work contracts were signed on an annual basis. American History USA notes that the tools necessary for farming had to be rented from landowners at high interest. Food and basic necessities had to be purchased at the planter's store at high prices. Initially, it was standard practice for tenant and landowner to split the crops on a 50-50 basis. Gradually, it became standard for the contract to stipulate a 70-30 split to the favor of the planters. Over time, a debt would be worked up to the planters that bound the sharecroppers to the land in a state of peonage, similar to the system of serfdom in Europe. Those who were unable to meet their end of this bargain were evicted. Those who agitated for better conditions were evicted. Once evicted, it was hopeless to find another place in the area that would take a sharecropping family in. Moving to a new town with no money or connections was a dangerous pursuit. In most places, blacks without a job or work were considered to be vagrants, lazy and shiftless. This class of people could be thrown in jail and from there sent out to work in the chain gangs. Companies throughout the South contracted with the prisons for the services of these gangs, and they became not only a source of revenue for the states, but a valuable means of social control. From the Women's History Network, In pre-industrial economies, the children contributed labor. That contributed labor. That was common and considered essential for the maintenance of an independent household. Nonetheless, without the protection of their parental rights, African American adults lost the labor of their children in the murky freedom that American authorities granted. In 1935, again, the quote I posted up, the slave went free, stood a brief moment in the sun, then moved back again towards slavery. In that brief moment in the sun, Reconstruction liberated all slaves, in theory, and granted citizenship to a black population who had been permanently constrained under the shackles of bondage. Nevertheless, in many ways, formal emancipation was a minimal definition of slavery's end. Excuse me, I'm sorry, y'all. As abolition was followed by a protracted or prolonged struggle to define the meaning of freedom. In a period also marked by increased levels of immigration, questions of citizenship. Oh, we talked about citizenship, didn't we? Possession and guardianship flooded political and social thought of the time. The South had lost its primary system of labor. And questions concerning what would fill this void inevitably came to the forefront. Despite their newfound liberty, thousands of black children were legally and illegally removed from their homes and placed under the service of white adults, sometimes without, but often frequently with the consent of their parents, without any recognition at all, social or political. The black child fell between the cracks in postbellum world that demanded labor entities. With the help of profiteering industrialists, they found a new way to build wealth on the bound labor of black Americans, the convict lease system. And here's how that works. Black men, and sometimes women and children, were arrested and convicted for crimes enumerated in the Black Codes, capital B, capital C. That's a title, Black Codes. That's a thing you can look up. State laws criminalizing petty offenses and aimed at keeping freed people tied to their former owners' plantations and farms. The most sinister crime was vagrancy, the crime of being unemployed, which brought a large fine that few blacks could afford to pay. Black convicts were leased to private companies, typically industries profiteering from the region's untapped natural resources. As many as 200,000 black Americans were forced into the back-breaking labor in coal mines, turpentine factories, and lumber camps. They lived in squalid conditions, chained, starved, beaten, flogged, and sexually violated. They died by the thousands from injury, disease, and torture. For both the state and private corporations, the opportunities for profit were enormous. For the state, convict lease generated revenue and provided a powerful tool to subjugate African Americans and intimidate them into behaving in accordance with the new social order. It also greatly reduced state expenses in housing and caring for convicts. For the corporations, convict lease provided droves of cheap, disposable laborers who could be worked to the extremes of human cruelty. Every southern state leased convicts, and at least 9/10 of all leased convicts were black. In reports of the period, the term convicts and Negroes are used interchangeably. Of those black Americans caught in the convict lease system, a few were men like Henry Nisbet, who murdered 9 other black men in Georgia. But the vast majority were like Green Cottonham, the central figure in Blackmun's book, who was snatched into the system after being charged with vagrancy. A principal difference between antebellum slavery and convict leasing was that in the latter, in convict leasing, the laborers were only the temporary property of their masters. Now, on one hand, this meant that after their fines had been paid off, they would potentially be let free. On the other, it meant that companies leasing convicts often absolved themselves of concerns about workers' longevity. Such convicts were viewed as disposable and frequently worked beyond human endurance. The living conditions of leased convicts are documented in dozens of detailed first-hand reports spanning decades and covering many states. In 1883, Blackman wrote, Alabama Prison Inspector Reginald Dawson described leased convicts in one mine being held on trivial charges in desperate, miserable conditions, poorly fed, clothed, and unnecessarily chained and shackled. He described the appalling number of deaths and appalling number of maimed and disabled men held by various forced labor entrepreneurs spanning the entire state. Dawson's report had no perceptible impact on Alabama's convict leasing system. It didn't change anything. The exploitation of black convict labor by the penal system and industrialists was central to Southern politics and economics of the time. It was a carefully crafted answer to black progress during Reconstruction, highly visible and widely known. The system benefited the national economy too. The federal government passed up one opportunity after another to intervene. Convict lease ended at different times across the early 20th century, only to be replaced in many states by another racialized and brutal method of convict labor, the chain gang. Convict labor, a debt peonage, lynching, and the white supremacist ideology of Jim Crow that supported them all, produced a bleak social landscape across the South for African Americans. Black Americans developed multiple resistance strategies, and gained major victories through civil rights movements, including Brown versus Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act, and the Voting Rights Act. Jim Crow failed, and America moved closer than ever to fulfilling its democratic promise of equality and opportunity for all. But we all know in the decades that followed, a tough on crime politics with racial undertones produced, among other things, harsh drug and mandatory minimum sentencing laws that were applied in racially disparate ways. The mass incarceration system exploded with the rate of imprisonment quadrupling between the 70s and today. Michelle Alexander, many of y'all might have heard that name, famously calls it the new Jim Crow in her book of the same name. Today, the U.S. has the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world, even though crime has decreased significantly since the early 1990s. Again, this is pre-COVID, y'all. I know stuff is booming again, but I don't know how much. And while Black Americans, hold on, y'all, I gotta pull up this thing. Boom. Is that it? Boom. Nope, there we go. Gotcha. Whew, all right. And while Black Americans make up only 13% of the U.S. population, they make up 37% of the incarcerated population. 40% of police killings of unarmed people are Black men, who make up merely 6% of the population, according to the 2015 Washington Post report. Current estimates indicate that there are approximately 2.3 million people incarcerated in the United States, with an additional 4.5 million people on probation or parole. Just for context, the city of Houston has 2.3 million people, like the number of incarcerated. There are more people on parole or probation than the entire city of LA. The U.S. has the world's highest incarceration rate, and despite representing under 5% of the global population, the U.S. holds almost 20% of the global prison population, according to Prison Policy Initiative. The staggering incarceration rates in the United States can be traced back to a variety of factors and forces throughout the course of recent U.S. history. Again, in The New Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander argues that convictions for drug offenses are the single most important cause of the explosion in the incarceration rates in the United States. AR, drug offenses. More than 31 million people have been arrested for drug offenses since the drug war began. Nothing has contributed more to the systemic mass incarceration of people in color in the United States than the war on drugs. This is what contributes to what is called the prison industrial complex. One key feature of mass incarceration in the U.S. is the racial disparity in incarceration rates. People of color are incarcerated at disproportionately higher rates. I know we've said that multiple times. As indicated by Michelle Alexander, and the war on drugs, which began in the late 1960s and continued throughout the next several decades, it provides a clear case study for the trend, despite the fact that people of all races use and sell illegal drugs at remarkably similar rates. People of color are incarcerated at rates far higher than their counterparts. For example, Black men have admitted to state prison on drug charges at a rate that is more than 13 times higher than white men. The disproportionate incarceration of people of color is not exclusive to drug crimes, but rather constitutes a broader trend across offenses. The American Civil Liberties Union reveals that 1 out of every 3 Black boys born today can expect to go to prison in his lifetime, asking 1 of every 6 Latino boys, compared to 1 of every 17 white boys. Differential incarceration rates are not limited to race, and other again, like I said earlier, it's not just about black. Other marginalized groups, including poor people, queer people, and disabled people, are also disproportionately incarcerated. Additionally, the prison industrial complex encompasses a growing network of privatized immigration detention centers, which have become the default for imprisoning undocumented immigrants for indeterminate amounts of time, even while gaining a track record of detainee abuse and neglect. Today, 73% of undocumented people detained in the U.S. are housed in private facilities, according to the New York Times. Operating with little regulation or oversight, these detention centers have a clear financial incentive to cut medical, food, and maintenance costs in order to maximize shareholder returns. Now, the term prison industrial complex is derived from the Cold War era military industrial complex. It refers to a combination of private sector and government interests that profit from increased spending on prisons, whether it is truly justified or not. Rather than a covert conspiracy, the PIC is criticized as a convergence of self-serving interest groups that openly encourage new prison construction while discouraging the advancement of reforms intended to reduce the incarcerated population. In general, the prison industrial complex is made up of politicians who play on fear by running on get tough on crime platforms, state and federal lobbyists who represent prison industries, and the companies that profit from cheap prison labor and exploitation of incarcerated people. The depressed rural areas that depend on prisons for their economic survival, and the private companies that view the $35 billion spent each year on corrections as creating a lucrative market rather than imposing a drain on taxpayers. Influenced by prison industry lobbyists, some members of Congress may be persuaded to press for harsher federal sentencing laws that will send more nonviolent offenders to prison while opposing prison reform and legislation on the rights of incarcerated people. From ThoughtCo, as the only Americans not protected from enslavement and forced labor by the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, incarcerated have historically been required to perform routine prison maintenance jobs. Today, however, many incarcerated people take part in work programs that make products and provide services for the private sector and government agencies. Typically paid far below the federal minimum wage, incarcerated people now build furniture, they make clothing, they operate telemarketing call centers, they raise and harvest crops, and produce uniforms for the U.S. military. For example, the signature line of jeans and t-shirts, Prison Blues, is produced by incarcerated workers at the Eastern Oregon Correctional Institute, employing more than 14,000 incarcerated people nationwide. One government-managed prison labor agency produces equipment for the U.S. DoD, or Department of Defense. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, incarcerated people in prison work programs earn from 95 cents to $4.73 per day. Federal law allows prisons to deduct up to 80% of their wages for taxes, government programs to assist crime victims, and the cost of incarceration. Prisons also deduct small amounts of money from incarcerated people required to pay child support, which, that kind of makes some sense. In addition, some prisons deduct money from mandatory savings accounts intended to help convicts become reestablished in a free community after their release, which also makes some sense. But I would need to look at the oversight on that. After deductions, participating incarcerated people netted about $4.1 million of the $10.5 million total wages paid by prison work. Programs from April to June 2012, and that's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In privately run prisons, incarcerated workers typically make as little as 17 cents per hour for a 6-hour day, a total of about $20 per month. Incarcerated workers in federally operated prisons are paid more, but still only an average of 14% of the federal minimum wage, earning an average of $1.25 an hour for an 8-hour day with occasional overtime. Federal incarcerated people can net from $200 to $300 per month. Now, this goes back into my philosophy on all of this. Nature abhors a vacuum. If a void emerges, something swoops in to fill a space. So, like, even in your own lives, like a way to look at this, If there's a need in your life, something, if there's a void, a vacuum, a empty time, like free time, something will come and fill that time. Something will consume that energy. Something will be the necessary expense for your money. There are very few needs, wants, or thoughts that go unattended, if any. And, you know, like we talked about the devil, Mimzy. Idle hands are the devil's playground, they say, right? But something's going to fill that time. And when you remove a source of self-perpetuating free labor, such as slavery, something has to take its place. The market demands that the machine keep moving. Well, one monkey don't stop no show, right? So suddenly the labor market and all of its human capital are free of each other. And you know, that doesn't even make sense. What do the people do with their time? What are all the crops going to do that need to get tended to? Something new or a modified version of the old has to rise up, or chaos would have took over. Imagine being in school again, back when you were a youngster. What happened when the authority figure or the teacher was removed and a sub was in the classroom? There was a power vacuum, and the children always know how to feel it. It's similar, but what we're talking about are levels of power. This is how I came to understand the dynamics of race, class, and gender in regards to power. Dominant culture. Dominant culture is like the parent. That's the default. The home is in their image. So the parent sets the tone of the house. They set the temperature. They decide where all the furniture is laid out. That's dominant culture in America. That's you, Uncle Sam. That's the daddy, right? But you have to learn to operate in the mode of the homeowner or the parent. That's how you survive. The minority positions, Black, Latino, queer, different groups of women, well, LGBT, let's just lump it all together. All the different minority classes and groups have to learn how to operate in dominant society. That's why almost all of us are bilingual in a sort of way. We know how to code switch. But dominant society does not have to do the same. Because again, like they're like the parents. They don't have to speak in our language to survive, but we do in theirs. So our positions are similar to childhood, being in a child's position, a minority position. Black people and other minorities are looked down upon, but Black people especially are like the redheaded stepchild or the foster kid. The natural children, the children of the dominant culture, they get a better room, they get better food, they get an allowance. The further down the hierarchy you go, the worse the treatment. And Black people were like the abused kid that gets stuck in a broom closet. Kind of like Harry Potter was. I know y'all seen Harry Potter. Or if anybody watches Atlanta, in the episode titled 3 Slaps, they reimagined the story of Devonte Hart to allow him and his adopted siblings to live. Now I'm going to play this quick video for you. It's only 1 minute 37 seconds. But this is the story of Devonte Hart just summarized.
And I just pointed down to a sign and said, "Hey, can I have one of those?" And he just looked at me with these big wide eyes and just grabbed hold of me.
One of the children came over and started asking for food. And it went on for a period of time until we kind of determined that he was probably reaching out. It was Devonte for sure.
Yeah, so that was a little clip about the story of Devonte Hart. Again, it was just about the, the stepchildren, how they get unloved and uncared for in a weird way. They actually had those children and drove them off a cliff. Like, I mean, that stuff is crazy, but that is what happens to people who are unloved. They get caught up in other people's trauma and other people's pathologies. And that is what happens to people who don't have the power to protect or look out for themselves, including the children, including minorities. That is what happens. You get steamrolled by the people who are given control over you. So that's what is happening here. So the path from trouble to tragedy is hard to conceive of, but we already have many examples of the psychology behind it. That's why many of you have heard people rebuke calling children bad. Anyone in education knows how hard they fight against tracking and labeling children trouble or separating them out. The human mind has an amazing ability to meet the bar that's set or rise or sink to the level of the challenge in front of it. In sports, we call it being a gamer or playing down to competition. You show up for challenges and you check out when the stakes are low. Another term you may not have heard is the Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect or Rosenthal effect is a psychological phenomenon in which high expectations lead to improved performance in a given area. Now I'm going to bastardize Plato's allegory of the cave. You'll hear it as the socialized, the self-authoring, and the self-transforming mind. But for the sake of simplification, let's call the three types of mind dependent, codependent, and independent. All right. So the socialized mind is the dependent mind. It's tethered to the conditioning of society or the environment it finds itself in. Its choices are molded and shaped by the people who create the conditions and culture. This also is spoken about in the example of the elephant being tied down by a stake. And when it grows up, even if you remove this, even though it's two tons, it never removes the stake in its mind, and it never pulls the stake out of the ground, even though it could easily. It's the same mechanism for dog training. The barriers that you perceive in your mind are reinforced and internalized, and eventually they'll become like concrete in your mind. You won't be able to overcome those mental barriers. And to that extent, this quick
video. How many of you have a dog? How many of you have ever had a dog that had a flea on him? That's everybody. You ever seen a flea? One of the smallest insects. Really small, one of the smallest insects. But for his height and size, and flea has the highest vertical leap in nature for an insect. A flea can jump, has a 36-inch vertical. A flea, man, can come 36 inches off the ground. His vertical is 36. The average person can't do that. But a flea can jump 36 inches off the ground. If you capture the flea and you put him in a mayonnaise jar and you put the lid on it, the flea know one thing. I got a 36-inch vertical. So here he go. He start jumping. But he gonna hit himself on that lid because he got that lid on it. But after a while, after getting knocked down so many times, the flea makes an adjustment. So now the flea only jumps just to where he don't get knocked back down. He got 36 vertical, but since this lid is on, his environment got him now jumping nowhere near what he can. Capture some more fleas and put them in there. They got 36 verticals, but then they start jumping. They find out they keep getting knocked down. They start doing what the other fleas is doing. Next thing you know, I got a jar full of fleas in there, ain't even using a 36-inch vertical because they got a lid on the jar. Them fleas have babies. Them babies is born into the conditions of the environment. So now guess what? The flea is born with a 36-inch vertical, but because he see his mama and daddy and all his cousins and friends jumping just barely to the roof, you know what he do? He duplicates that behavior. The flea never reaches his potential. Until you take the top off of your mayonnaise jar, you're going to duplicate your surroundings. If you take an oak tree seed and you put it in a 2-foot pot, that seed will never become the oak tree that oak trees are capable of becoming because it's going to get stifled by the 2-foot pot. Now check this out. Ain't nothing wrong with the seed. The seed just fell prey to the environment. You are a seed from God. God made you in his likeness. He big, he vast. Don't you allow your environment to dictate the oak tree that you become.
Yeah, everybody. So real quick, Sim, I'm gonna go back over the comments. But yeah, that kid, Devonte Hart, who gave that hug to the cop in that viral clip, yeah, he's gone. Family took all the kids over a cliff, man. I know that's sad. I hate to come back from that clip to that, but yeah, man, that young man is gone. And yeah, I will definitely share that clip in y'all. I will look for that as soon as I'm finished and people come up to talk. I will find that clip and share it for you. What I believe is not self-evident or obvious, but the path to prison is laid between preschool and preteen years. Positive and proactive interventions have to be created to produce a diversion to criminality for behaviors that are typical of the young. If I tackle again, this is me talking. If I tackle the second half of the stuff I had in here, because again, I'm on section 3 already, and it's 2.5 hours in. If I tackle the second half of this, I will go into what should be done next. And do we have the will to do it? But for now, it is on us as individuals to sacrifice some of our comforts or pursuits of lavish luxuries and maybe even live a meager lifestyle to accommodate being present to raise the children. It will require more intention on marriage and family planning. It would take being less selective when looking for partners when we already have kids to increase the household resources. It would mean creating cooperatives to teach and homeschool children outside of the standard structure. There is already so much literature on this topic from a clinical perspective or a more contextual testimonial account from people who have seen many facets of this dynamic from school to prison, who've been on every side of the court system. If this is a topic you are interested in, there are ample resources at your local library, at book retailers, on YouTube, and many other places. The information is a search away. Answers, however, are unfortunately something that are open to interpretation. So with that being said, I want to, that in section 3, I am going to drop the link if anybody wants to come up. Again, like I mentioned, I had 7 more sections. I only did the first 3 today. It was just so much. I don't know if I want to do multiple days of this. I really don't think I do. But I did want to explain, like I believe with what was said today, we can see how your potential can be hindered and impeded if you are brought up in an environment that keeps you encapsulated. And the American system, it does not just impact Black people, but for Black people, it is the most pronounced. And it started with systems that were adopted after slavery. If anything, like a trap, if you set a trap for one animal, like a raccoon, your pet might get caught into it. So even though there were things that were meant to keep Black people suppressed, other people are getting caught. Other minorities are getting caught. Now white people are getting caught by the traps of capitalism. I think it was Fred Hampton who tried to build a rainbow coalition, everybody coming together because they recognized that the actual oppressors were not just was not just white people. White people were being hurt by the system too. The system is not made by us and it's not for us. Y'all saw Nancy Pelosi's fridge full of ice cream during the pandemic when we couldn't get toilet paper. The people that have the wealth and the power are not worried about any of us, no matter what our color. So our divisions along class and gender and identification and identity, man, they are petty and don't mean anything when there are people that would allow us to die under a system that would keep us down. And they would allow our children to be led into death, marched into prison from preschool straight into prison. So this system is not for us. It's not by us. And it's our job, though. It may not be like AR asked me about blame earlier. It doesn't even really matter who's to blame. It's our responsibility to do different. If we're alive and we have children out here, or we know somebody, there's a child that we care for, it's our responsibility to help keep them out of that system and help, what they say, each one teach one, each one reach one. it is our responsibility as humans to look out for the other humans on this planet, because there are other people who just see us as prey. They will just exploit us. Yes, it affects Black people the worst, but we are not alone. Hey, man. So all of y'all, when I say, man, like Marcus is my brother, I know that he has to deal with the same problems I have to deal with, just different. Nobody gets excluded from this. Everybody gets run over. So, man, I hope y'all can see the path I laid out from school and the environment and why people are being led towards free labor. So I hope those connections were clear enough without me. I don't know. I hope y'all got what I was trying to give. Hope y'all picked up what I put down, so to speak. But I'm going to, did I put down that? I sure did. Let me put down this link, man. Let me put down this link. My fault. I am going to go back and to where I left off, man. My fault, y'all. My fault. All right. So, boom. Danny Anthony, man. Appreciate you for stopping through, sir. Uh-oh, Twitch gang. Now, I don't know how to pronounce that. X, Y, and Z. What's up, fam? What you got locked up for, brother? I didn't get locked up. Thank the gods. Didn't get locked up. Nolan Richardson. Oh, wait a second, y'all. Got a visitor. Hello. It's Bri.
Hello. Hey.
How you feeling?
Good. I wanted to hear the whole thing before I came up and said anything. I think you did a great job presenting your argument. It was giving college lecture tease. I really enjoyed it. I can tell you put a lot of time into it. You found your scholarly sources, which you don't see often on YouTube. I like it. I really enjoyed it. I think you made a good argument for what you were trying to point out. Even though you said this could have gone on longer, I think that you did a good job with just like the 3 points. So I learned some new stuff. I've seen what you're talking about firsthand. So I know it exists and I know it happened. And I know it's hard for people who, it's weird because it happens, but it's so easy to like not believe. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like if you aren't like in it or you haven't seen it, which most people don't have the I guess luxury of being able to see things from outside of their environment. But like I went to a magnet school when I grew up. I lived in the hood, but I went to a magnet school. So I went to a school like across town in a nice side of town and it was the same county, because my county's huge, but all the white people stay on the north side of the county and all the black people stay on the south side of the county. And the difference between those public schools were just so different. When I went back to my home school in high school or something like that, I think I went back to the school, like my neighborhood school, and it was just so crazy, the difference. Even the energy of how the teachers treated us, how the punishments went, how children who were deemed like, I guess, remedial or whatever were foul. It was weird. Like it was very strange to me. Like, I mean, I came from a school where we took the SAT in 7th grade. Like that's the school I came from. Yeah. You know what I mean? And this was a predominantly white school. And then you come back to your school and then they put me in a like reading, like I had to go through this. It was some weird class where you sit in there and read like really basic text or something.
They put you in a remedial class.
Yeah, but I like came from a magnet school for high achievers. And it was so weird. I don't even know. And they were just like, you have to go through this because you came from, I don't know. It was weird. So, so I know this happens, you know? And what was even more scary was that there were people in there struggling with reading what they were giving us to read. And this was probably, if I had to guess, 5th grade level reading. So, yeah, I don't know.
No, I definitely get it, man. I've seen a lot of stuff in schools too, like what they try to do to gifted and talented, but they don't want to call some people not gifted. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you struggle with the labels, like, because as soon as you separate people out, you're like triggering that Pygmalion effect. Well, we don't expect you to be as good as these gifted and talented. in the remedial classes where we don't expect you to be like as the unlabeled children, you know what I mean, the general population. So as soon as you separate people out, you're setting an expectation of what their outcome should be. And the children pick up on that. They know because we make fun of each other. I mean, Gym Pop would make fun of the remedial classes, and the high achievers made fun of the Gym Pop. You know what I'm saying? So we know like the class and power structures that exist for children that are set up by adults, it affects adults, and we learn and pick up on all of that stuff. And so
But
I
I
mean that's
think,
important.
but if you're gonna label, like, I mean, that's kind of how it goes with hierarchies, right? Like if somebody's gifted, somebody's not. I mean, I think that's part of the problem with society. It's like, well, let's not call anybody anything, and then everybody's just mediocre at this.
Yeah. And that's true, but I think we have to be like what the problem is, society is not smart enough about it. We should be adults enough to recognize clear distinctions. Like you're a woman, I'm a man, and we can say that, and that's okay. But then our expectations of what we should be able to do should be set. Like you talk about equity. Well, then, like, well, Rashawn, okay, you can carry this 75-pound thing. Bri, can you get this 40-pound thing or 45 pounds? You know what I'm saying? So we set the expectations based on the real and legitimate things. If somebody came in with a 4th grade reading level, we shouldn't expect them to be at 8th grade by the time they finish like 6 months. Like everything should be tailored and individualized. You know, like, but that requires
the resources,
attention and resources. Like, do we have the will to divert attention and resources to the children?
I kind of lean more into I mean, the time of institutionalized anything is probably coming to an end. I think the real question is not how to heal broken systems, but like, what are we going to move to? Because the world is more individualized now, which I am pro individualized things. So the thing is, you can't really fix these systems because at the end of the day, the intent of the systems, what they were intended for, as you've shown, I mean, they do very well. And I think the harsh reality that people have to face is these systems aren't built for your benefit or your children's benefit. Now, you get people who come on the YouTube streets and they talk about how the system is built against us, but yet and still, your kids in public school. No shade to it all. But I mean, you know, you can't complain about, I mean, you know, I talk about anime on my channel when you talk about how bad anime games are. But I'm like, well, if every time a Naruto game comes out with character, they put a character in the game and you buy all the skins and they just gonna keep doing it, even though it's trash, you know? So it's like, what can you really do?
Nah, I got the same thing on my end with sports games. Everybody keeps buying the FIFA or the Madden, and they're putting out trash, but people keep buying it because their minds are conditioned. Like, I gotta get the new one.
Yeah.
They got a new update. They update one thing, and I gotta get it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of a big problem. That's why I think I bounce it back to individuals. You have to like make a difference for yourself. You know, I've been running around on these streets talking about he don't make 80K, he don't get a baby.
Hey, I'm with it. Like, hey,
I feel like that's how extreme it has to be. No shade. I was talking about it on my stream room. No shade. We've all been there. I've made $25,000 a year. You know, I've been there myself, but I wasn't in a rush to have babies when I was making 25, you know, waiting tables, you know. So I just think there needs to be a lot of self-reflection, responsibility, self-accountability, like just wanting better for yourself in general, wanting better for your children, because a lot of parents, like, people do everything for themselves, but their children just fall to the wayside. So I don't know. I don't know how to fix it.
No, I'm with you. I really think, like you said, though, it needs to be personal standards. You have to set standards for yourself and for your family, and everything has to start there. Like cleaning your own room, it's all got to start there.
Yes.
And you're gonna have to make sacrifice. Like, I know you said it at 80K, but it may mean a family living on 40K differently, so that we're not worried about future comforts. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, but again, I don't diss anybody saying 80K because somebody else, they know that's not feasible for everybody. You know what I'm saying? So,
and because of how, I mean, 80K, if you talk about how the average American lives, right? Like I have two brothers. One makes well over 6 figures and the other one makes maybe 50 something K. But the one who makes 50 something K, he has a wife and 2 kids, but they live in the country. They live on acres. They own their house. They have a house that's the size. So his 55K goes way further than some people who make 6 figures.
Yep.
I would dare say his money almost goes farther than my older brother who makes almost 200. Because they literally own everything. They have one bill. I think it's electricity. So he's pocketing almost all his salary. He doesn't have to pay all these bills and all these things. So yeah, like you said, but most people aren't willing to do that though.
And that's the thing. When are our, and that was going to be one of my sections too. Like, when are our kids going to be important enough for us to make those type of sacrifices? Like, I mean, what would it take? Because that's what we're going to have to do because we're not intentional about family planning and having kids. That's why I know that's the divide where so many people are not willing to sacrifice for them because they didn't even plan on them in the first place. They didn't plan on them, didn't want them. So I'm definitely not going to sacrifice my lifestyle for them.
A lot of people don't even like their kids.
Yeah, even once you have them. Yeah, people do not like that. I know for a fact my mother did not like me and my siblings. But
it's horrible.
No, it's not horrible. She loved us. But
I know it's like that whole do I like you? I don't have to like you. You know that whole thing.
But she grew to like at least I once I got out of my I promise you I was an idiot. But once I came out of that, like we've grown close in my older age than when I was a kid. I mean, I promise you, all the stuff AR talks about black people, that was me and my family. But now that I've gotten older, like I've kind of flipped. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing the opposite. So I'm trying to do better. I've mended relationships. Me and my mother are close now, as opposed to she tried to get rid of me 3 times before I was 18.
Oh my gosh.
So I know about the school to prison pipeline. I was messing up in school. I was getting suspended in school suspension. They were talking about expelling me because I was hitting the mandatory maximum of suspension. You've been suspended so many times, it triggers an expulsion. So I know how this stuff tracks. I've seen all my friends and which ways they've gone. So man, I get it from both ends and helping my nephew navigate school. So I get it from almost the parent perspective and the child. And it's so important that we invest in our children, and we can't keep waiting for somebody else to do it. It's going to have to be us, one form or another.
Yeah, I agree. But, cognitive dissonance is definitely a big problem. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe you're a little bit more hopeful than me. I don't... A part of me, I'm starting to just believe some people will just have to be distant. I mean, this is why institutions, even though they aren't perfect, have to exist, because some people are just never going to, take accountability. I don't know. I think hierarchies are a part of nature. I don't think we'll ever be able to really get rid of them. I don't really think we should either. So that's hard to say, because I mean, the reality of it is what we have. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I buy a more socialist system would be for the best,
Yeah, I get you. And as a total, maybe a socialist system, but like as I kind of use it because we have a capitalistic country. But then when you go to pro sports, they all employ systems of socialism, like salary caps and like drafts and division of labor. Like they all employ socialist structures. And I think within each group of people or within each hierarchy, within each class or demographic, there should be mutual aid networks and socialism community things. So, because I know people are by and large insular and xenophobic. Like, it's just something we're not going to overcome that. But within our social groups, we should be more communal. Again,
I mean, that's what the whole idea of church and religion and all that was. Right. At first, like a community, like a beacon in the community that people knew they could go to for, like you said, those more socialist community resources. But you know how that went. So,
and that's where a lot of this stuff is. It's the strangest thing that so many things fell apart at the same time. The church and a lot of these institutions that we had put our faith in. School and the press and all this stuff started to decay around the same time. The 60s and 70s, man, it was like It was a rough time for America. I don't know
The
what
drugs were
happened.
amazing.
Woo.
Hell of a drug. I don't know. Maybe it was purposeful. Maybe phase 2 of a plan that it had to happen at that time.
I can't say.
Maybe it was planned, orchestrated to be that way.
Might be. It did, but there was so much switched that it really could be, or just like could have been a social switch. It just could have been a social order change. I mean, anything could happen.
I genuinely am pleased with the trajectory of things. Sorry, I'm cooking. My toddler's still looking at me. You can go play with your toys. Okay, you don't have to play with your toys, but you ain't going over them. You're not going. Sorry, but yeah, I'm generally pleased with it. I actually appreciate it more when you have a system that's gonna like basically snuff out any institution, okay, like or any organized gathering of certain people, right? I actually feel like in that sense you have to be pro-individualism.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually quite pleased that at least in an individual on an individual level right now, you can really achieve a lot. You can make a big difference in your own life.
Absolutely.
So I tend to not really, I shout out to the people who fight for group efforts. I don't even know what to call it, but I tend to not put my energy into it.
Mm.
Because I think it's such a big, it's like seceding from the nation at this point. Like if we just decided we wanted to break off the United States, like we probably would get pummeled. Like, it's just a lot. I don't think people realize what it takes.
No. I really, they don't know what it takes because we obviously don't even know what it takes on an individual level. Like we haven't even wrapped our minds around taking care of ourselves, or like me, I'm talking generally speaking, a lot of people are failing, and me included, failing ourselves and then or failing our families. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many levels where we don't know what it takes to accomplish. And I'm not talking about a big grandiose save the world kumbaya type thing, but we could be better towards each other in small degrees that would improve all of our lives.
I agree. But I think the question has to be answered first of why do you feel yourself? Like if people can actually get to the root of why is, because you sit here and we all talk and it's like, okay, if just knowing was enough, then I'm sure a lot of people would be in a better spot. So until people can really answer the question of in the individualized way of why you can't make any change in your life, I don't think we can then translate that to a larger group.
Yeah. And that's why the thing about the flea and all that stuff was important, because the first thing, like, I don't know, I'm sure you probably heard like Plato's allegory of the caves. Like there's, because I know you talk about so much stuff, there's levels of awareness. But the first one is to know like that you're in a construct, you know what I'm saying? Like that you're in a system that's set up. Like, school is a system. Somebody set that up and there are rules to it and you can understand them and navigate them. And there are test taking strategies. Like you can be aware of the system that you're in and the best way to navigate it. Like that's like the first step. And people need to, because again, if you don't know what your potential is, it's hard for you to progress because you don't even know yourself enough. So you have to know the systems that you're in, how to navigate them. And then you have to know yourself. Like that's that second level of awareness, like knowing yourself, knowing your surroundings. That's the first thing as a child, you see everything around you. You don't see yourself. So it's easier to figure out the world around you first and get a handle on that. And then get a handle on yourself. Like that's the thing. I know I came to it late, but getting a handle on myself and what my role was. So that was the second part. And then the third thing, there's a third level to it or more levels than that, whatever. But you have to get a handle on your environment, understanding it, because I knew I was crazy. But then the second level, understanding myself, once I realized I wasn't crazy, I just didn't understand the world properly. Then I was able to focus on myself and recenter and start finding a direction. And I think a lot of people are also misaligned or wrongly oriented.
How did you realize you were wrongly oriented? Did you just have a moment where you were like, this sucks? Like, what was it like?
Getting out into the work world. Like I promise, my mother, I said we had issues when I was young. My family was extremely troubled. Right. But when I got out, because I thought I was crazy. I grew up thinking I was crazy because I was so different and nobody understood me, nobody liked me. So I'm like, I was like, again, don't please don't know about that. It wasn't no pity thing, but it was like,
yeah. I mean, just kind of like,
yeah, but I was like, I thought I was crazy. Something's obviously wrong with me. Then I got onto the world, and the world's like, no, you're cool. And I'm like, what you mean I'm cool? Like, no, you're cool. I'm like, no, something's wrong with me because nobody else likes me. Nah, they like, we like you. So I'm like, oh snap. Like, so I'm not, and I got along with people and everything was fine, and we were able to have friendships and go do things together. I'm like, this is like heaven. Like, I can hang with people and we're not fighting or at each other's throats in 45 minutes, and nobody hates each other, and we're not trying to sabotage each other. Like, what is this? This is better than my family. Like, and it was just people I worked with and became friends with. So I learned that I wasn't as poorly aligned as I thought. Again, when you're a young person, you think the world, what they tell you, like these young people, when they're telling you you're a troubled youth or you're a bad kid, you internalize that. So that's why it's so important that there's some kind of positive reinforcement in their lives to divert them from that path. Because if they think they're crazy, they're going to buy into that and they're going to start acting crazy. You tell them they're violent, they're going to start being violent. They're going to play to this. They're going to play the role that you assign them to. Most people do that.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I do notice that, and it's also unfortunate sometimes in certain areas, like it's kind of like a cultural thing that it's not cool to be intelligent or open or, interested in other things, outside things. I still notice that even in adults, you see it in children because children are generally the extreme. But, when you show up and you're a little different, you look a little different, talk a little different, maybe you're really authentic, people tend to make a lot of assumptions about what that means about you. And so, yeah, I grew up dealing with the same thing, but just being like, I don't really care if y'all don't like me because I'm cool. Like, I'm cool to myself. So I was okay with that. But, everybody doesn't have their resiliency, especially depending on, like you said, your parents and what they're putting into you. My mother had a degree in child psychology, so I was very lucky. That was her specialty. And she worked with like nonverbal kids, and like she worked in like back when they had the institutions for the kids with behavior problems. Like that was her specialty. So I think I was a little lucky.
Nah, that sounds dope though. I mean, so she had a lot of insights, and she probably handled everything a little less like emotional than like some people who don't know how to be parents. Like it's probably. I mean, comparatively speaking, I'm sure for you had an upbringing, so it was your experience is your experience.
Yeah, my mom was dope.
Yeah.
Even growing up, she felt like a pretty dope mom. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, most people are intimidated by my spirit. It used to bother me, but now I'm used to it. And that's the thing I had to come to, like where a lot of like you and Miss Nebraska, y'all embrace who y'all are. It was like I always felt I needed to hide who I was because again, you internalize being like there's a problem with me. I don't want anybody to see that. So you internalize the facade, trying to present what people would like, trying to people please.
I mean, for as like outwardly chaotic and creative as I am now, I mean, I definitely went through a phase where I thought I had to, assimilate to society. It sucked. I did not like it. It was the worst 2 years of my life. So yeah, I was like, fuck this. I'm going back to being myself. So I think we all go through it. It just happened for me later in life because I was just always, like you said, you take on those roles. Everybody said I was the weird kid. All right, I'll be the weirdest kid you ever met. I really leaned into it, a lot. So I think we all go through it. But I think if sometimes we could spend more time, like just thinking about that, if you can answer within yourself why you can't make the necessary changes in your life until you can conquer yourself. I mean, you're not going to be able to go out here and cake for other people.
Right.
And that's part of the problem with the Black community, honestly.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do not. There's a fear, and I'm pretty sure the environment kind of breathes that into us, but we're afraid to dive into ourselves, like to learn ourselves. I know so many people that are like, I don't even know who I am. Like, once my kids were grown, I got to find out who I was. I'm like, man, we're not taught to figure ourselves out first and foremost. And I think that's a travesty of sorts. It's sad that we don't promote like self-exploration in that way. And even like and counseling, we demonize people that, therapy and counseling in a weird way, but a lot of us want to do it. Like so many of us want to do it. Most of us want to go, but people like, man, I don't want to tell nobody my problems. I'm like, man, but it's the weirdest thing, man.
I think people just assume that they have the tools needed to problem solve. I don't think, like you have to teach kids everything. Like really, you do. You really have to teach them. I was like, when I had kids, I was like, I really have to teach y'all how to brush y'all teeth. Just like the funny thing. Like, oh my God, I literally have to teach you how to wipe. Like, I have to teach you literally everything. Like, I could literally teach my kids something crazy, and they'd be like, yeah, that's the way the world is. Like, it's kind of crazy. And so I think it's weird that people think that like you really got all the tools you needed, like from your parents, especially if they had to work full time. Yeah, and like. You went to public school. Like, I would just say it's probably safe to assume you did not get some conflict resolution skills. You maybe didn't get like some emotional intelligence skills that you probably need. I think most people should just assume that they did not get that. And then from there, you can realize like therapy really just gives you those things.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
You definitely got to get the tools from somewhere. And if your parents didn't have the tools, you definitely couldn't inherit them. Folks got tools, but they got the wrong tools. Hey, I hear that.
Yeah, they do have the wrong tools. Because me with my crunchy parenting, people always be like, oh my God, it's so weird. What do you mean, whoop your kids? How do you get them to listen to you? It's just like, wow, like I really, it's not that I can't understand that it's a strange concept for people, but the fact that in some people's mind, the limitations of their world, like you exist in a world where you cannot figure out that there is conflict resolution outside hitting somebody that bruises your ego.
Yeah,
but then those same people, like some of those same people probably disagree with what Will Smith did. So it's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, we carry a lot of conflicting ideas in our heads. So yeah, we don't apply the same principles across all systems. Like that's the problem with a lot of the things. Like you said, the cognitive dissonance typically becomes where we have a principle that we apply just here, and then we're over here,
right.
and so we're not making the pieces fit because our brain, like we haven't done the internal work to make the pieces fit in our own mind, and then they'll fit together in the world because you'll take your values and they'll be consistent.
That's good.
Unknown origin. Now, in fact, just
but
thanks for having me up. I'm cooking dinner, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish up.
Yeah, go love up on the family, and hopefully I get to see some Overwatch this week.
Yeah, you'll see me tomorrow at 12:30 playing Overwatch and pussy. So.
Yeah, all right.
All right, have a good night.
Yep.
Bye.
Everybody else out there in chat land, I really appreciate y'all. I hope y'all got something out of it. It was definitely a departure from what I normally do, but I wanted to give a little service to the main mod Enya, who had suggested this topic. So hopefully I did it some justice. You did an awesome presentation. I have to go though. I have to teach in the morning. Definitely. Enya, thank you. That was for you. Appreciate it. Miss Nebraska, this was good. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I'm glad you liked it. Again, I know I had other parts that I just wasn't trying to do all that in one day. I don't know. Again, I think I'm just going to let it go with that on this topic. We'll be back next week talking about disaster prep when disaster strikes. So, yeah, we want to talk about a few things, but I want to do it a little differently, kind of like I did today. I want a twist on it. I'm not just going to be sitting up here showing you how to make bullets or anything like that, so we'll be talking about more conceptual. I like diving into the concepts and ideas, so that's where we'll be with disaster prep. So next week, Monday, April 18th, 5 p.m. Eastern time, you can find me there. In the meantime, if you want any updates, because I will be doing some pop-ups probably in between there like I did the other night, follow me on the Discord. I'm trying to get better at maintaining a Discord. It's new to me, so stick with me. I'm pulling the link for the chat now, but that will be where I'm going to announce when I'm going live, and we'll probably just pull up and talk or something. But again, give me a second, because there we go. Boom. If you're not already on the Discord, because I know Summer already in there, Kawaii Bri already in there, but join the Discord. At any time I'm going live in between now and Monday, you will be notified. Again, if the bells don't work for me on YouTube and Twitch, I don't get the notifications properly. So Discord, I really like the Discord because Summer Mints, so many other people utilize Discord to make the announcements, and I get those every single time. So, matter of fact, I get too many of them. But I appreciate it. Everybody, I want to thank you for spending your time with me. I am getting ready to head out, and I don't have any intro. I'm gonna have to get an outro. I need something I'm saying on. I need something to close. I need y'all brainstorm and then send it to me. Submit it to me in Discord. What should my outro be? I need something like, you ain't gotta go home, but you gotta get the heck up out of here. It's gotta be something. I don't know. I think I need something. Or is that just too corny? I'll think about it. Danique said you come a long way. Yeah, appreciate you, bro. Definitely. Yeah, matter of fact, yeah. Danique, Danique was the one that was giving me encouragement too. When I was not sure about doing YouTube, me and Danique were discussing in Messenger. And he was like, yeah, you could do it. You could do it. He gave me the encouragement. So, I mean, there were a few people that encouraged me and a few people that gave me examples, but Danique was definitely one of the direct people telling me and giving me thank you, Reza, giving me constructive criticism along the way too. So I really appreciate you. Thank you. But that is it. On the way out, I think I'm going to hit y'all with the Steve Harvey one more time. Then I'm going to do the outro. All right, that work for y'all? That'll work for me. Peace.
How many of you have a dog? How many of you have ever had a dog that had a flea on him? That's everybody. You ever seen a flea? One of the smallest insects. Really small. One of the smallest insects. But for his height and size, and flea has the highest vertical leap in nature for an insect. A flea can jump, has a 36-inch vertical. A flea, man, can come 36 inches off the ground. His vertical is 36. The average person can't do that. But a flea can jump 36 inches off the ground. If you capture the flea and you put him in a mayonnaise jar and you put the lid on it, the flea know one thing. I got a 36-inch vertical. So here he go. He start jumping, but he gonna hit himself on that lid because he got that lid on it. But after a while, after getting knocked down so many times, the flea makes an adjustment. So now the flea only jumps just to where he don't get knocked back down. He got 36 vertical, but since this lid is on, his environment got him now jumping nowhere near what he can. Capture some more fleas and put them in there. They got 36 verticals, but then they start jumping. They find out they keep getting knocked down. They start doing what the other fleas is doing. Next thing you know, I got a jar full of fleas in there, ain't even using a 36-inch vertical because they got a lid on the jar. Them fleas have babies. Them babies is born into the conditions of the environment. So now guess what? The flea is born with a 36-inch vertical, but because he see his mommy and daddy and all his cousins and friends jumping just barely to the roof, you know what he do? He duplicates that behavior. The flea never reaches his potential. Until you take the top off of your mayonnaise jar, you're going to duplicate your surroundings. If you take an oak tree seed and you put it in a 2-foot pot, that seed will never become the oak tree that oak trees are capable of becoming because it's going to get stifled by the 2-foot pot. Now check this out. Ain't nothing wrong with the seed. The seed just fell prey to the environment. You are a seed from God. God made you in his likeness. He big, he vast. Don't you allow your environment to dictate the oak tree that you become.
My fault. I was slipping. I was supposed to have the outro ready. Here y'all go. Peace.